Okay, we'll call Lewiston City Council to order. It's the time and place as advertised for our December 23rd regular meeting agenda. And for those of you wondering, why would we have a meeting 2 days before Christmas or 1 day before the Christmas Eve? It's because it's in our city code, and we can't change that. It says we shall meet on the second and fourth Mondays of the month, so here we are. Welcome, everyone. First order of business is a pledge of allegiance. If you'd please stand and join us in reciting our pledge. I Thank you, everyone. I'm going to do my best to project my voice. If you can't hear me or you can't hear someone on the council, just politely wave your hand or something, and we'll try to remember to get a little bit closer to our microphones. I think, you see, it gets really loud if I do that. It's better, isn't it? Yeah, I know. So we'll all do what we can. Councilors, please remember to speak up and have your microphones turned on too. Councilor Forsman, there you go. In case you need to speak up, you're probably going to turn on. We should have two of our counselors zooming in from home. And so if somebody in IT can let me know that they're here, or if they can speak up and let us know that they're there. There's Counselor Litke. You can hear us, Counselor?
I can, Mayor.
Okay. Counselor Speckelmeyer?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselors. All right, we'll begin. Our first order of business is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor. In consideration of others wishing to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We have a microphone in the middle of the room where you can come to provide citizen comments. You'll have to get up on that microphone like I'm doing here so those at home and the council up here can hear what you have to say. You'll have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and your city of residence. We don't need your physical address. And then you may speak on whatever you'd like to speak with tonight. We have a lot of folks in the audience here tonight. If you're here and you'd like to provide comments on something that someone else has already spoken on, certainly feel free to stand up and give us your name and city residence, and you can say, I support that issue or I don't support that issue. It's not necessary to repeat everything that we hear of everyone, but if you'd like to just be on the record, we sure like to have you do that. So with that, I will open up the microphone and welcome any citizen comments we may have. First up, welcome.
Hi, I'm Dan Young, Lewiston. I'm here tonight to speak about the small lot subdivision code. This is the 4th time I've come to the council about this. There's several residential zones in the city of Lewiston. There's R2, R2A, R3, and then the small lot subdivision. So all these subdivisions have standard provisions defining lot size, setbacks, lot coverage, and use. However, in 2021, an ordinance was passed, ordinance number 4835, amending the small lot subdivision. City staff determined small lot subdivisions needed architectural articulation, and I had to look that up, but this is stepping and recessing external walls in an effort to add interest, aesthetics, or character to the home. So during this ordinance being passed, there were 7 standards that were added. And I'm not going to read all 7 of them in the interest of time, but one of them says primary entrance shall incorporate a front porch or building articulation elements such as cornices, brackets, overhangs, shutters, and window boxes. It's one of the requirements of the code. Incorporation of a wall plane projection or recession, with the plane projection being a minimum of 1 foot in depth and a minimum height equal to 25% of the height of the wall. I don't know what that means. For a home with an attached garage, the garage wall with the garage door shall be recessed 4 feet from the adjoining habitable space wall of the home. That one means that the garage has to be set behind the front of the house. Street trees shall be planted by the developer or lot owner in the right-of-way between the street and sidewalk as approved by the city engineer or city forester. In the small lot subdivision code, the lots are 50 feet wide, or can be all the way down to 50 feet wide. How do you plant a tree in the planter strip when you have a driveway and sewer and water service? There's nowhere to plant a tree. It's a code requirement that you plant a tree the way that the code reads right now. So I've appealed to the council a couple times. The council compelled planning and zoning to review this section of the code. Planning and zoning did that, and they directed the city staff to change the code. Unfortunately, the same city staff that wrote the bad code is now responsible for changing the code. Same person that wrote it is now changing it. Instead of simplifying the code and allowing construction to proceed fluently, the revision made it worse. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all the requirements that were added, but one of the things that was added, of the 8 things, primary entrances to homes shall incorporate a covered porch and a minimum of 3 of the following building articulation elements as part of any street-facing facade: cornices, overhangs, bay windows, balconies, or other similar architectural features. 3 of the 4 of those have to be added. What is a cornice? I mean, it's very challenging. All homes shall have a minimum of 1 dormer. So that was added. This is an improvement on the code. Roof shall be a hip, gable, or mansard roof with a minimum 4 and 12 pitch, 12-inch minimum eaves. Any mansard roof shall incorporate dormers equal to 25% of the facade area of the roof. Okay, so there's 5 more things on top of that make it very difficult to understand as a builder developer, and I don't see how the city is going to be able to enforce these things. And it's in the planning and zoning agenda. You guys can look this up and see it. But my question is why? So if affordable housing is an important thing to the city of Lewiston, why are these requirements being put on a builder developer who's trying to build houses affordably to add articulation elements that cost more money? It doesn't make sense.
Dan, thank you. That's 3:15.
So there's no timer. How do I know how much time has been taken? I have one more small paragraph. So why is the city planner that, to my investigation, has never built a house in the city of Lewiston? The city planner has never developed a subdivision. And after 17 years as being the city planner, he doesn't even live in our city. He doesn't even live in our county. And he is the one that's our city planner. And he's the one that gets to tell me that I have to add these things onto my houses. And we built 200 houses in this town. And this guy's not built one. And he has the authority to make me add these articulation elements to the house. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Kevin Kelly, Lewiston. I'm just here to speak in support of Active Agenda A, Resolution 2024-50. And Active Agenda Item E, 2024-43. And one more thing, I would like you guys to approve a firefighter contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm Linda Glines. I live in Lewiston, Idaho. And before I start my little spiel, we have a lot of people here supporting both sides of this transitional tiny home village. And I would like for the people that are in here that are opposing this lease to please either stand or raise your hands. And we have a couple outside the door.
Let the county know we're all against it.
Okay. All right, so what I've got to say here is there has still been no outreach via Michelle King with the residents of the area. She has stated that she will be teaching the village residents how to be good neighbors, yet she has not reached out to the neighborhood herself. She has held an open house that we were given 24 hours notice to attend, and our concerns were swept aside so she could continue with her presentation. The commercial and mixed-use areas along East Main Street corridor look like in the city comprehensive plan, they want it to become a business corridor. No one else is allowed to build any houses in most of that area. That's forbidden because of the zoning. Section 2 of the purpose of the lease does not designate that the village must stay within the CUP 24-3 ruling. It will allow future CUP requests to possibly change it to bridge or homeless housing. They got 75 years potentially to put that request in. The housing for either of these changes will not be as regulated by the guidelines as set forth in the city CUP for the 24-23. The state statutes listed on the lease by the attorney need to be read out loud to the city council. It states the lease must be just and equitable. There's nothing just about no community outreach or input. There's no equitable if surrounding businesses did not have an opportunity to lease or purchase to expand their businesses. You gave $4 million to the airport, but yet you're willing to take $100 a year rent for 50 years to start with that option of up to 25 more years. You can sell it. You can put the monies back into the city. Statute 1409 talks about leasing for other purposes. Nowhere in that statute does it actually state long-term housing. It needs to be read out loud to the council as well. You know, we need to be supporting the small businesses, and nobody's given any of the small businesses the opportunity to expand in that area. The city has other larger vacant lots that this project could be built on. It would allow the original 20 units or more that this project was requesting. This neighborhood is in recovery from drugs and crime. There's a great fear that allowing a lease like this will destroy all that we've done to try to better it. You know, supporters of this, which is great because it is got a project with warrant, none of them live in the neighborhood. They can support it, then find some property somewhere else to help support it, because this is our neighborhood, not theirs. The entire process has moved forward without any discussions with the residents and the businesses it will affect. Why was this not done? Shouldn't those of us that live here be able to voice concerns and worries and have an actual conversation about it? We have questions and no answers or guarantees that our concerns will be addressed by Michelle King. We ask that the property not be leased and to give the community an opportunity to purchase the land. As it is in a mixed zone, not only will the city get funds from the purchase, the city and county will collect taxes each year that amount to more than $100 a year of additional income.
Linda, that's 345.
Okay, well, last sentence. Taxes that cover the city and county's needs and costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome.
Bill Kessel, Lewiston. I rise tonight to express disappointment in the city of Lewiston's decision to allow the transitional housing project in the East End Park ground. In your rush to promote the transitional housing village, you have overlooked and ignored objections of the surrounding neighborhood. Situated in the M1 zoning code, which allows the transitional housing villages by special use permits under section 37-86 in accordance with the provisions of Article 9 and 4. Article 9 led me to section 37-160, authorization to grant or deny conditional uses. Subsection C, the commission shall consider the following relevant criteria and standards. Number 3 of that is the character of the proposed use if developed according to the plan as submitted will or will not be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located. The 10 or 12 tiny houses will disrupt the harmony with the surrounding single dwelling neighborhood. 5, the proposed use will or will not be in substantial conformance with the comprehensive plan. I read the comprehensive plan of 2044 under the City of Lewiston's Park and Recreation section that references the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. This plan was created in 1999, updated in 2010. On page 9 of that master plan under the characteristics of sub-neighborhood parks, number 2, it states, the following are locations where sub-neighborhood parks shall be established. Locations which cannot be adequately served by a neighborhood park, defined elsewhere in the master plan. A neighborhood park is a half-mile walk. Our neighborhood is currently 1 mile from Sunset Park. B, locations cut off by barriers such as railroad tracks, ravines, bluffs, or major streets. We have Main Street to the south, Highway 12 to the west, and railroad tracks to the north. C, locations which are beyond a reasonable walking distance to existing neighborhood parks. Again, Sunset Park is a mile away, which is double the reasonable distance for a neighborhood park. On page 28, the master plan further explains what sub-neighborhood parks are. However, in the fourth paragraph, it states, where the need exists for a sub-neighborhood park in existing neighborhoods, the city of Lewiston, in conjunction with other units of government, shall be responsible for acquisition and development. Page 37 of the master plan, East End Park is listed as a park in East Lewiston. Page 57 of the master plan is a list of action items for neighborhood number 3, East Lewiston. Action 10, provide a trail connection from the East End Park to a levee system, priority 2. Action 11, install irrigation system and park enhancements of the East End Park, priority 3. Page 70 of the master plan is an inventory matrix of the park items. East End Park had 1 picnic table and 1 litter receptacle. In a newspaper article dated September 24th, 2007, picture of 2 picnic tables, a couple of shade trees, and a swing set. In the master plan, there's no mention of getting rid of or changing the intended use of the parks. There are conflicting statements in the story of the East End Park, supposedly. A resolution of 2007-62, the park was declared surplus. However, the master plan does not reflect that in the updated version of August 2010.
Bill, that's 3:30. I need you to finish up.
All right, I have submitted this to you via email, so you have it, okay? I'll just end it there.
Thank you. Well, you're
Heath Jensen, Lewiston.
going to have to get up on that microphone so everyone can hear you. Yeah.
Heath Jensen, Lewiston. I wish I could say I have papers with all my opinions written down, but I do not, unfortunately. I'm speaking on behalf of what personally I have seen living here basically my whole life. I'm only 15 years old, so I don't have a lot of experience as a lot of the people in this room right now. But from what I have seen, I currently reside at the LC Valley Youth Resource Center as a part of not having the resources appointed to me from being young and not having a lot of support and mental guidance around my whole life, bringing me to make a lot of bad choices and kind of just throw my life away. But with the resources and the help and just all around just guidance that I've received from the people at the Resource Center, I've been able to get a lot closer to God with my religion and find a lot more guidance with going to school, maintaining 2 jobs, saving up, getting into dual credits with LC at the age of 15, being a sophomore, graduating early next year. And in my opinion, why do we not offer these resources to people going into adulthood, 18 through 20? Because at the end of the day, in the state of Idaho, altogether in general, there's not a lot of resources for juveniles under the age of 18. As far as, getting your driver's license when you don't have parents, which is a really big setback for people like me who do not have the parental guidance at this point in my life. But with the help from people, I feel everybody can be successful. And with this coming and the grants and the help that the state and the city can provide in general, so that early adults transitioning really to get to the point of, basic maturity, knowing how to take care of themselves, knowing how to take care of other people, because obviously all of you are well said. That's why you guys are here. You guys know what you guys are talking about. Everybody should be able to do that. Everybody should have those resources and have what they need to be successful in life, to be able to do what they're doing and continue it, college, family. And, I just think that should be offered to people, like myself, who spiraled down for a long time at a really young age, who was able to bring myself back up with the help of all these people right here. So, yeah, I'll try to keep it under 3 minutes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm Vicky Fadus from Lewiston. I am not a resident of the area that is being proposed for a youth foster kids to go into, but I am a strong resident of Lewiston, and I am a member of that community. I strongly support the work, that it has been done with the Lewis and Clark Valley Youth Resource Center. I think they're highly motivated to provide a great program for kids. And I need to restate that again. We're talking kids that have no place to go after they are out of the foster program. So it's like dropping them in the middle of homelessness is what it is doing. I think that location is perfect. First of all, it's on the school bus route. Secondly, it is walking distance, and I might add, it's a sidewalk going to Albertsons. So they have walking, they can get to the Albertson stores, they can get to the courthouse, community center where they can get on public transportation. They can easily get to the library. I think that the Lewis Clark Valley Youth Resource is highly motivated to make this work because it's kind of their first and last chance. If it doesn't succeed this time, it won't succeed again. So I think they're highly motivated to see that these kids have the resources they need to succeed as adults. And I think it's the responsibility of all citizens of Lewiston to help these kids succeed. We do not need to walk away and add 12 more people to the homeless population. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Welcome.
Kat Glover, Lewiston. I just want to say that I know that everybody is in the community where this village is wanting to go. We are not against what she's doing at all. It is a good program, but we just don't want it in our backyard, which literally would be in my backyard because of where I live. And we just want our community back and not have this done where she's planning on doing it. And I know there's other areas that this can be done, and where she can do the 20, which she was wanting to originally. And as far as bus routes go, which I know that was an issue she brought up, we did speak to the transit people, and they said that they can put bus routes as long as it's a need for it. They can put them build a new route and put them there, or just the way they can take them away. So that wouldn't be an issue for this to be done somewhere else. Thank you.
Here.
Ed King, Lewiston, Idaho. I also serve on the Historic Preservation Commission, and I just want to say that I said that because just like you council members, I don't sit on the commission to get rich. I do it to be part of the community and to stay involved in the community and to make sure that I have input. We started this process, 2 or 3 years ago, actually. But the actual process where we're at now, we started early August, and we did send a crew to the neighborhood. Yes, we did. Hold on a second. Somebody chased them out, and we felt they were threatened, and they didn't feel safe, and we pulled them. We then had a community forum in August, and all you people were there, including Linda. And they've had every opportunity, just as we have the opportunity, just as it is presented and conducted in city business. They've had every opportunity. It's been 17 years. They've said it. But why all of a sudden is the park important? They've been using it for a parking lot, honestly. I got pictures, okay? Boats, campers, cars. It's a parking lot. We are actually going to make it so you drive down East Main and you see a well-landscaped, beautiful little place with nice little houses instead of the mess that it is now, just a parking lot. So honestly, I know you all are, I love our community, and I know you guys do too. And I know you're afraid. But I got to tell you, our kids are not the people that you guys want to call them. They're not thieves. They're not drug addicts. They're kids that need a chance. So y'all's name calling and assuming is wrong. Give these kids a chance. Please, council, give these kids a chance.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second. Is that working? Maybe, maybe not. Just a reminder to please address your comments to the council and not to each other. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Oneita Booth, and I'm very well aware of what this group of people, Christian group of people, are trying to do for these kids. They're good kids. They're not tramps like they are in Clarkston. They're good kids. And they're being encouraged to go to school and to get jobs and be appropriate citizens of the community. I think it's very critical that we support this organization that is getting this, hopefully getting this done, and that the city council approves it. We have lots of Christian people that are for it and that are backing it. I think it's very, very important. That's my speech. And those of you who live in that area, you need to double think about what you're going to do to these kids. Throw them out in the street again, you know? Come on. Let's think twice about what can be done and do the proper thing. Thank you, council. Appreciate your listening to me.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Council members. My name is Lisa Martin, and I live in Lewiston. I sit on the Regional 2 Behavioral Health Board, and I also chair the Housing Subcommittee. I've come here this evening in order to provide my support for the Village Project. I experienced in my work on the board and in my position with the courts where there is an urgent need to support people in finding housing. We are only seeing increased homelessness and housing displacement. This evening, we're specifically addressing the need for supportive housing for our young adults. The project that Michelle King has planned and designed is desperately needed in our community. This plan has all the pieces in place, and in order to provide for success for the program, Michelle has addressed safety considerations, on-site staff, and funding. The most exciting piece is that these young adults will receive education, life skills, and resources. They'll receive resources in obtaining and maintaining employment, learning how to live independently, communication skills, healthy relationships, house and home management, career preparation, health and nutrition. It's my opinion as a community member that we should not turn our backs on these young people. We need to step up to the plate and mentor and teach them how to be productive, successful adults. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Welcome.
Lexi Circa, I second that. Sarah Walters, I third that.
Hi, I'm Angela Howard, and I live here in Lewiston, Idaho. And I don't think there's an argument amongst one of us in this room that helping children is a bad thing. None of us believe that helping children is a bad thing. And I would hate to see everybody deviate from that fact tonight. We're not talking about their organization and what they do and the good that they do and the children that need it. We're talking about the location and the description of surplus property that is either apparently for lease and possibly at some point for rent. Surplus property, in my opinion, and I would have to dig back deep in my years of planning and zoning, I haven't done it in this town for years, But surplus property, as I believe, should have been offered to the entire community, especially the neighborhood that is attached to, related to, adjacent to, before this plan happened. I mean, there are lots of things to spend money on, and I'm kind of disappointed at $100 a year that the city's willing to put their necks out there on a 50-year lease for $100 a year. As we all know, in a lawsuit of any kind, and being a landlady myself, the person that owns the land is ultimately responsible in a lawsuit for anything that happens on land. They will include the city of Lewiston if there's anything that happens there. I would like to encourage the city of Lewiston to not lease this property, but to put it up on the auction block as surplus property like they would any other thing, including a stapler that they do not need any longer. Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Jeff Edwardson. I live in the city of Lewiston. What that property is not just used for a park, it also serves as one of the main drainages to get the water all the way from up around the National Guard, all the way down the whole part of Lewiston. All that water flows through this lot that you're talking about building homes on. It's a big ditch there. It's not just a flat piece of ground. It's actually part of our stormwater drainage system. If this land were to plug that off or put a culvert in there that plugs up that they can't get at, that water is going to destroy people's homes. It's not that people don't, personally, I'd like to have a place for more younger people to live, but to block it to where the stormwater has no way to get to the river. You look at how much work the city has done just adjacent that property to make sure that water gets to the river. You can't always count on the culvert that goes through there to feed that water to the river. They built a canal through it with rock sides so that when the water doesn't make it through the culvert, it flows across the road down there when the snow melts off too fast. It's part of our drainage that gets the water to the river. It's not just a flat piece of ground for people to build on. People need to look at the natural terrain. It's not just a flat piece of ground. I mean, look at where it runs right through the middle of it. It's the drainage that gets all the water from that side of 21st Street to the river. I mean, it's part of our drainage systems. It's not just a flat piece of ground. I know the kids use it for a park in the summer. Some kids Easter egg hunt it in the spring, but I'd like to see more places for younger adults to have, but it's not a good place, in my opinion, to put something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
My name's Nicole Plof, and I'm a resident of Lewiston. Actually, presently, and for the past 5 years, I've lived roughly a stone's throw from where the Elsie Valley Youth Resource Center is now. I've received multiple correspondences in the mail from the organization asking if we have noticed any activity related to the youth center, if there's any volunteer work that they can provide to the people in the neighborhood. I had nothing but positive feedback in regards to that correspondence, and I really appreciated that they were asking how they could contribute to the neighborhood that they're a part of. I didn't have a choice whether they moved there or not, but I've seen firsthand the children and the people that they've helped in our community, kids that have nowhere else to go, and no one else to lean on. They are appreciated in the neighborhood that they're in now, and I hope that they're welcomed into their next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Walters. I am a resident of Lewiston. I am not in the area where the tiny house community is looking to build, but I am in the community or in the area of the youth center. And I've seen firsthand the work that Michelle King has done to secure a safe environment, and not just safe, but sober environment for these kids, and to teach them the value of being sober and following the laws. It has really opened my eyes to the need that Lewiston has with that next step in finding and securing housing for young adults. I can remember being 17 and I wasn't able to be at my house and I had nowhere to go. I had to rely on friends and hope that I was going to be in a safe environment. And unfortunately, there were many, many times where I wasn't. And I didn't have anywhere to go because this wasn't available when I was a young teenager. So I think this is a very important project. I'm sure that we can all agree on that. But as someone who lives in the area immediately where this resource center is, I have not noticed any problems with these kids. I don't hear any fighting. They have a strict curfew. I've heard Michelle's plan for the tiny home community, and so I know that she's going to continue on with those strict rules to be allowed in that community. So I know that there are a lot of fears with drug activity, but I don't think that is actually a valid fear with the kids that are going to be in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Gloria Kakosa, and I live here in Lewiston.
Welcome.
And we have had the Resource Center people come out to our group at the All Saints Church and talk to us about this project. And from everything I've heard and what I know about what they do already, it's very worthwhile. And I hope that the city can help this group to help our young people and keep them off the streets. And we don't need more homeless. I come from California where they have lots of homeless, so I know how bad it can get. So please give it some good consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Rita Cannon. I live in Lewiston, and I totally support this. Listening to Michelle the last few years, she has an excellent plan. These are not the problems that Clarkston had for the homeless camps over there. These are kids. She has a plan to guide them to finish education, learn how to be self-supporting, learn how to be good citizens, and I strongly agree with this. Please support the kids and this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Will Thompson, Lewiston. I've worked in the Lewiston School District for almost 15 years, 13 of those at Jennifer Middle School. So I'm right down the road from Valley Resource Center. And I remember when I heard that it was going to go in, I was excited because I see the needs so directly. And I have seen the needs met regularly over long periods of time, and I've seen the difference that the Resource Center has made. I think the plan that they've proposed for the village looks sound, and I think that not only do we have a social duty here, but I think we have an economic duty to our valley. There's plans for people to be full-time staff here, as well as we're going to show these young people that this is a place that they can call home. And that investment will pay far more than if we were to sell or expand another business, because perhaps there's a business owner who would be staying there as soon as it's up and running. So please vote yes on the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Glines. I live in Lewiston. The park, my kids used to play in it all the time. The city abandoned it. And now we've been trying to get it back, but no one's listening. If you're going to be financially responsible, the best bet is to sell it. You're not going to get that much money on this $100 a year lease. You'll get more in taxes from one of the other businesses that are wanting that property. This isn't the only person out there that wants it. It would make financial responsibility if you sold it. It's better for Lewiston now and in the future.
Thank you.
My name is William Cannon. I've been a resident of East Lewiston for over 60 years. I have nothing against helping the youth in town. I think it's a good idea. I just think it's a bad idea to put a homeless camp out there in East Lewiston. For the last 5 years, we've been fighting problems with what I call squatters instead of homeless people. They move into the houses that are vacant and move into the houses of people that are a little off out there. But we've had problems with stealing gas. They stole my brother's boat in broad daylight. I mean, we've been dealing with drug addicts and thieves for the last 5 years. We finally got most of them cleared out of the area, and now you're going to move them back in there again. And I just don't think this is a good spot. I just don't think it's a good spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And on top of the fact, when I asked him not to block my alley so I could get into my house, the guy threatened to shoot me and my wife and rob everything we owned. And when the neighbor kid here stood up and tried to help, say, you can't say that. They threatened to kill him too. So we're looking at violence out here too if this happens. I don't think it's a good spot.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bergie of Lewiston, Idaho. I am actually a staff member at the Youth Resource Center. I have been for a little over 2 years. And I see a perspective none of you guys get to see. And it's these kids when they turn 18 and they have nowhere to go. I have sat and cried with these kids because they have absolutely nowhere to go. And their only option is either go back to their abusive home or be on the streets. And it absolutely devastates me. We actually have 2 of our success stories and then 1 current story that's in the room. I know Jacob is one of our current success stories. He's one that looks at me like a big sister. And if you don't mind me calling you out, Charlotte is one of our current success stories as well that benefited from us and has become an amazing young adult from the help we have done. But I can admit they would have had so much more help if they had somewhere to go when they turned 18. And that's why I ask that you guys vote yes for this. It is something these kids need. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jacob. I was a former kid over at the LC Valley Youth Resource Center. I now currently work there. When I was growing up from the ages of 13 to 14, I was violent. Not exactly the best kid, you would say. I was kind of a rough childhood. I was a troublemaker, all this stuff. But as the days went on of me going to the youth center, they have not only improved my life, made me a better person, and they just helped with everything. To me, they're not only just coworkers, not people that just work there, they're like a family to me. And I'm more than grateful that they hired me. And I don't know. But not only that, but when I turned 18, I was kind of scared because I was not sure exactly where I was going to go. I was relying on their resources for a little bit, moral support, and all that stuff. They did not only just improve me as a person, they improved my life in general. And I feel like when this shelter gets built, not only a shelter, but it's just a place for people that not only live there, but people that are in need, that are about to turn 18, have a safe place to go. And I feel like it's better than throwing them on the street. My parents, when they were growing up, they had a rough childhood, but they didn't have the resources and they did not grow up to be as good as of people. I used to live with my grandparents, but it wasn't only their help, but it was the Youth Resource Center that helped me get to where I am today. And I asked the council to please say yes to this because I feel like it would be a very, very good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to say, please. You people who have been robbed beaten, threaten your lives. Why on earth don't you call the police when they do this crap? Why doesn't the police, hey, you police over there, why don't you do anything about these people?
Okay, ma'am, okay, all right. All right. Okay, listen.
Where is our law enforcement? Where's law enforcement, for
Okay,
God's sake?
thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Megan Comstock. I am a resident of Lewiston. I own a home, raise a family. I serve on the Region 2 Behavioral Health Board as the parent of a child with a serious emotional disturbance. I did what society wants everybody to do is to adopt an older kid out of foster care and the challenges that come from that. I can appreciate the fear of the unknown and the fear and the reality of having individuals that are addicted to drugs and are a menace to society that don't have anywhere else to go. And instead of trying to keep pulling these bodies out of the river and supporting them when they're so far into their addiction that recovery is very challenging and almost impossible, I implore that this is an opportunity to stem that tide just a little bit and say, let's keep this next generation from ending up on the streets addicted to drugs, causing problems and mayhem. And if they have a place to go, to feel the support, to know that they matter, to become a productive member of society, I think that that is the best thing that we can offer that your community, the community of Lewiston, and our greater region, because this is a dire need, and we have somebody trying to step up and fill this gap and make a difference. Please support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Squires. I live in Lewiston. I would like to address the concern of the current property values in East Main. I did some research and it does show that homeless shelters, especially those not designated to families, have a impact of decreasing the property values that are currently there. I am not against helping these kids, but the 1975 Age Discrimination Act does state that any federally funded entity is not allowed to discriminate due to age. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Keith Watson. I live in this valley. I've been in this valley since the early 60s. I've watched the city do some crazy stuff, but this is the most stupidest thing I've ever seen you guys do. This is not right. Our rights have been taken away from us. We've not been allowed to answer, ask. We haven't had any outreach. We've been forced against our will to keep our mouths shut so you can ram this down our throat. There's nobody in this neighborhood or existing neighborhoods that want this in our neighborhood. We're not against helping people. Let's put one of them housing units in your yard.
I'd be glad
And
to.
one of them. Okay,
I'd be
well,
glad
there's
to.
one of your units right there. We'll put them in your yard, all your supporters. We can
All
put
right.
them units in everybody's backyards. Yeah, put them in your backyards. Because we don't want, I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to listen to you.
Steve, talk to us, please.
Yeah. The truth really hurts, doesn't it? But we don't want them in our neighborhood. You got people that are moving out because you guys are trying to do this. We have neighbors that are, don't take me wrong, but neighbors are buying guns. They're going to protect their property. They're going to protect their property. They're going to protect their lives. This man's been threatened. They're going to kill you.
Okay, Steve.
Anyway, that's.
Okay, he's gonna go.
Yeah.
One more and
We're
you're
not
gone.
here. This is just a bad thing. It's a good thing that we're trying to help the kids. There's a lot of room and other places for this to go. We don't want our people to come through Main Street, Lewiston, come across the bridge and see. You guys have already called it a nuisance, but wait till it's a living nightmare. It's gonna be a living nightmare. And believe us, none of us are gonna sleep at nights because we don't already. We're not scared, we're fearful. You guys ought to be ashamed of yourself from the city.
Thank you.
Hey, Rita Cannon again. So Michelle, there's no federal funding for
Okay.
this.
All right, up here, address the council, please.
I'm sorry. So there's no federal funding for this. Everything is by donations. And it's helping the kids.
Yep.
It's not adults with mental illness and alcoholism and all that stuff. These are kids. So please help them and say yes.
Thank you. Linda, I have
One
to see if there's
sentence.
anybody else that has not spoken first.
Okay.
Yep. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Hill. I live in Lewiston. So I'm one of the success stories of the LC Valley Youth Resource Center. I was abandoned at 17 by my adopted mother, and I went to live at the LC Valley Youth Resource Center where I did not have an education at first. And I recently got my GED with the help of them. I also, I moved out of there at 18 years old, and I had nowhere to go but the church that I was affiliated with. And I lived in the attic for about 7 months before I was able to get into a homeless program where I was able to live there until I was about 19 and a half. And I now live at my own place. But without their help, I would be on the streets right now. And I am grateful to the LC Valley Youth Resource Center to this very day because of the fact that I have an education, I was able to get a job, and I'm still able to stand on my own 2 feet. Without them, I would not be who I am today. And I'm actually also part of a youth action board of Lewiston, and I am able to advocate for the youth that are living out on the streets because they have nowhere to go. And so I highly support the village, and I definitely think you should support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Corey Whitman Stitt, and I do reside in Lapway, but I would like to express my support for the lease being considered tonight for the Village project. I've had the honor of serving on the LC Valley Youth Resource Center board for several years, almost from the beginning, and have seen firsthand the impact that it's had on the kids, many of whom are here tonight. I've also fielded the phone calls of volunteers and staff that have cried those tears and have been heartbroken when a kid ages out at 18. 18th birthday should be something to be excited about. At the center, it's not. Because despite their major growth at the center, they now are left with no safe housing options. And let's be honest, you guys, even though I love you, they are not equipped with the skills or tools needed for adulting at 18. The community needs solutions for homeless kids beyond their 18th birthday, whether they're aging out of the center, the foster system, or other youth services. These guys need an opportunity for that sustainable growth in the next steps. They need a village, literally, to give them a real shot at breaking the cycle of homelessness. You guys got a window tonight into the types of kids that are served by the center in Heath. He's 15. There are 4 other kids at the youth center that will age out this year. This is not something that we can continue kicking down the road. It's going to have a real impact on kids right now. There have been a lot of talks about we can find another location, we can do this somewhere else. The truth is we cannot. We have looked for years for a location that will work to be able to provide these services, and this is the location. This is a bird in the hand. The dominoes are ready to fall if we can move this forward. These kids need to be safe. They need to be mentored. And this is the work of the center, and it needs to be able to continue at the village. So we need your votes to make that happen tonight. And thank you for all that you do for the city.
Thank you, Corey. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, folks, and you, the council. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I haven't heard that yet. But anyway, there's a couple of questions I was asked while we were out doing our homework on this tiny village. These are from people that have businesses adjoining right next to that property. And they seem to think, well, this was as a sublet property. Why did it not get posted as either for lease or for sale? So think I'm speaking for at least at 3, if not 4 business people in that surrounding neighborhood, why that didn't get posted as for sale, because they could have utilized the property, done something with it, and maybe bought a joint property next to it and build a nice, like a home in there or some kind of a small business where I know as I've had a business myself, you never have enough room. And I have talked to, like I say, joining businesses by the lot, and they would really like to see that place come up for sale so they could utilize it for their own, for their business, or maybe possibly we can find an individual that might want to build something on the property. So like I say, we just would like to see that being posted as leased, or possibly I'd rather see it come up for sale on behalf of the businesses that I speak for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Cody Stevenson. Born and raised in Lewiston, 28 years old. I live down on East Main Street right now. I'm down by Kennedy's Auto Body on 26th Street. Me and my wife are currently considering purchasing our first home down there. And I say considering because there's just been way too much thought going on with this and a lot of the other things going on down there. And I say of the other things going on down there because while I agree with their goal, I believe their intentions are pure, like a lot of people in here do. We can't ignore the fact about how much crime's going on down there. I've been living in this house since April. I've called the cops 4 times. It's on record with my phone number. One gentleman particularly tried to enter my front door, and I have an 18-month-old son that lives in my house with me and my wife. Found out later this gentleman had a federal warrant out for his arrest. It wasn't until after the fact he tried to break into my house, then he got arrested. I see homeless people walk by my house every night, East Main Street, squatters, people driving that they shouldn't be driving, drunk driving. There's too much going on down there, guys. My main question to you is, I know the problem down there has gotten better. It has. But it's still not fixed, and it's nowhere near what it should be. My question is, why are we trying to introduce all of these 18 to 20-year-olds who have good intentions, good souls, supposedly? Granted, I was 18 too. But we do believe that their intentions are pure. Why are we wanting to introduce all of these souls down in a particular part of Lewiston that's so incredibly infested with crime, homeless, drugs, and I can go on and on and on. It is a terrible part of town for this to be. I love the idea. I love the fact of it. You guys need to reconsider the location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm a resident of Lewiston. I also own a business in Lewiston. My name's Coco Umucker, and I'm just here to support the project and the good work Michelle's doing. It sounds to me, I'm from the sidelines. I've been watching and listening, and it does seem to me that this is a path to keeping people off the street. I think that's the whole point of it. I've actually had a business down in North Lewiston for some time before moving up to where we are now, and there were a lot of homeless people. But the point of this project is to help these kids not end up there. And I hope that you guys consider a vote for yes for this. And I definitely have heard some people say that there could be a more profitable use for this land, and that may be, but I would also argue that homelessness is costly to our town. And so if we can keep these kids support them in a loving way and keep them off the street, that might ultimately save the city some money. So there could be an actual fiscal argument for this to support it. So that is all.
Thank you, Coco.
I've worked a microphone before. You guys could just adjust this thing. You don't have. Good evening. I'm Rick Towsley. Thank you, City Council. I'm a resident here of Lewiston. I used to sit up there with them. I also ran the subcommittee on homelessness for this city after a project was turned down. And we discovered after 6 to 8 months of hard work, there was no other place. There was no other place. Sir, I let you talk. Let me talk. Thank you. Thank you. There is no other place. And I understand people's fears about the unknown. We all have those fears. But this is not what that is about. And this is about providing something that the city can do. And I never, in the time that I was in city council, I never saw anyone come up to us or go to planning and zoning and complain about the situation of the park in East Lewiston. I'm just going to say that. So all of a sudden, it's a big issue. This is the right moment, the right place, and the right time. You, city council and mayor, at such an important time in our city's history, you as a body can create a legacy for Lewiston. A moment when you can send a message to the children of our city who live with little hope that the city of Lewiston cares about their future, not about selling a little used, and I've driven by that place hundreds of times. It hasn't been used in years other than a place to store things for people who live in the neighborhood, but about people who create a refuge and a platform for children who are not looking for a handout. We always talk about, they all want a handout. These kids don't want a handout. They want a hand up. That's what's going to change this whole legacy that we're talking about. I can't help but think about Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol. Just kind of let me do this for a minute, will you? Scrooge was in his office, and these people came in to try to solicit some donations. And they asked, and he said, "Are there no prisons?" And they said, "Plenty of prisons." "And the union workhouses, are they still in operation?" "But both, very busy, sir." "Well, those who are badly off must go there." Many can't go there, and many would rather die. "If they would rather die, then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population." That's what I'm hearing a lot of tonight from people. Give this thing a chance. They are going to be good neighbors. We are going to work to make this happen. It's a possibility to make positive impact for the city. As far as a lease is concerned, you don't need the tax money off of that. You need to create something that will go beyond the time that you're sitting up there. It will be a lasting mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
I just want to add a comment. It's Linda Glines, Lewiston, Idaho. Michelle informed us during her open house that yes, she receives federal funding. She's got grants that help with federal funding, and she is currently the recipient of a HUD Community Development Block Grant for approximately $100,000. So all of her monies are not from donation only.
I'm Beth Everett. I live in Lewiston, and I just wanted to say I'm in support of the tiny home village. Thanks.
One more thing.
Okay.
Keith Watson from the city where I've lived almost all my life. So you have an offer. Do you accept a counteroffer? I'm asking. Somebody can answer. Do you accept a counteroffer? I know they said we'll give you $5,000 up front and then $100 a year. That's an offer. But will you accept a counteroffer?
Now, this is citizen comments. We don't talk about something else on the other part of the agenda until we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay, well, we have several people that would like to make offers more than what has been offered.
Thank you.
Sarah Walters. I would like to also say, just reiterate, these kids literally are in my backyard. I have young kids that go to the school that is literally across the street from them. And there's a daycare right across the street on the other street. These kids are not problematic. I've never seen the cops there. I've never heard fighting. I've never seen fighting. These aren't homeless kids out causing a ruckus and breaking the law. They have to follow rules to be welcome in this community and be able to have a safe place. That is what Michelle is trying to expand on, to give these young adults aging out of that safe environment a new safe environment. They're not going to be out there fighting or robbing people. They're not the homeless community that everyone seems to be afraid of. They are kids that need help. And as a community and a city, we need to do better and provide that for them. Give them that hand so they can help themselves, not just lean on someone.
Thank you.
Again, they're in my backyard. I can attest to how safe they are.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone that has not spoken? You have not, that's not spoken for the first time that would like to, please come up to the microphone. Welcome.
My name's Astana,
You gotta
and
get up
I'm
on
the
the microphone,
manager
too.
of First Step for Life, and I support the village.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mia Ronstadt. I'm a Lewiston resident, and I fully support the village, and I think this is the $100 a month is an excellent price.
Welcome.
Hi, Jesse Hart. I currently live in Clarkston, but I have lived in the Valley and in Lewiston for more than 20 years, over half my life. I've worked at the Northwest Children's Home in Lewiston for the past 10 years, where I have served at-risk and displaced youth from ages of 12 up to 18. And as has been mentioned previously by some people, there are multiple times when these kids get to that age and they have nowhere to go. And I've had to tell the kids that I don't have anything for them. I can't do anything for them. We're just putting them out on the street once they turn 18, because legally we're not allowed to do anything. If we had some sort of place where we could possibly look at sending these kids who are turning 18, it would be a huge godsend for them and everyone in the surrounding area. And as has been mentioned, these kids are not criminals. They're literally children. And we're trying to prevent them from becoming homeless so that they can stay out of criminal activity. What is the leading cause of this kind of criminal activity? Desperation. Desperation from not having resources and from being homeless. Please consider that and invest in our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Johnson. My family owns a business here in Lewiston, and I'm in support of this project.
Heath, Jensen, Lewiston. Sorry, coming up again. He adjusted that really easily. I don't know how he did that. But I want to talk about, so I'm still a juvenile. I'm still
I'm
15
going
years
to
old.
eliminate you to 1 minute because this is your second time, but go ahead, please.
This is. I'm 15 years old. I currently go to Tammany High School. And I want to talk about, like, again, so I feel by people automatically assuming that, oh, I was threatened by a homeless person. Oh, well, not everyone who's homeless is like that. We have feelings too. I was homeless, while these people that want to say this stuff were sleeping in their warm beds and stuff. I was 15, nowhere to go, sleeping on a park bench. So to take that really into a perspective of everybody's feelings, I wanted to bring up something from the Bible, but I didn't know if that gets shut down or not. But
It's your time to public speak, whatever you want to say.
in the book of John, it says, "For who am I to judge as I myself walk as an imperfect man?" And I feel that we should see everybody equally, and we should, well, I myself support this project because, again, we need to boost everybody so we can make the city better together, not as opposing sides as we are now. And it should be an agreement above everybody. And I feel everybody does deserve to be safe. Everybody deserves to want to live here, as a lot of people have for most of their lives. But, you know, why not work together to make it better and not judge people that we don't know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yep, my name's Steve Leto, and since I don't know how to operate this thing, and I'm 6'2" tall, anyway. I came tonight, I live in Lewiston, and I came tonight to listen. I may have opinions, but I'd like to learn something. So, and I do appreciate the service that the city council gives us, and I think everybody should remember that, in fact, they are, well, they're not doing it for the money. And I know that everything gets hot, but I think that people should speak once. Everyone wants to speak. You should get to speak. Everyone should get to speak once at least. It is a room full of people, and you're probably going to be here to midnight if we keep talking. So I would just ask that people be respectful to each other and to the council members. Thank you.
Thank you. No, just leave the microphone on as best, yeah, because they actually have to do it through this system, and then it'll mess it up, I think, but.
Okay. Hello, council. Hello, mayor. My name's Caitlin Hart. I was born and raised in Lewiston. I currently reside in Clarkston. I've been a member of this community most of my life. My last 10 years have been in various jobs in behavioral health with both kids and adults, 7 years with children. I currently run the child advocate program for Soton County, and I work with vulnerable children every day. I see every day the need for these services in our community, not just Lewiston, Clarkston. We are a whole community. Most of my job is finding resources for children aging out. And there's nothing. There's nothing in our community. There's nothing in outlying communities. These kids are left in a complete lurch. And it reminds me all the time of a saying I heard when I was a kid growing up here, which is that Lewiston's greatest export, is our young people. That's something that's been said in our community for decades, as far as I know. Our children reach adulthood and they leave. I would like to see our community change that by supporting the youth here, helping them through that vulnerable, what's supposed to be an exciting phase of coming into adulthood. I would like to see the children stay here or choose to return here because they were supported by our community. So I urge you to support the Youth Resource Center and what they've been doing and grant this land lease. Thank you.
You bet, yeah, thank you, welcome.
I'm Leighton Lilly, Lewiston, family-owned business for 50 years in Lewiston as well I'm speaking on. It's about the Thane Road corridor. This was recently voted down 2 months ago, which is a surprise to us that it's back on the agenda. I feel that the council, the mayor, everyone should maybe bring an amended version instead of trying to vote the same thing back in. I understand Thane Road has issues we are all about improving, but there's especially the 10th and Warner, there's a few things in there that would be detrimental to our business, and I feel also the traffic flow from the orchards down Gun Club. So since it's already been voted down, I would like to see some changes made before it's voted in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Wood. I didn't even know what was going on tonight. So you've got a resource center. I'm kind of familiar with that, and you want to I guess basically what I kind of comes to my mind is, you know, here in the city of Lewiston and around the country, we really got to think long-term as in terms of this drug problem, family breakdown, all the crimes that are related to it. This is not going to go away overnight. If you shoot down, you know, a small program to do a little bit to help, the problem still remains. It's, you know, no attempt. I always figure too, if somebody's willing to stick their neck out and try to, you know, to do something, my inclination is give them a shot. You know, they're trying to do, they're the ones sticking their necks out. It's easier for us to kind of, I mean, I live up on the orchards. There's crime up there, you know, in these little trailer parks. It's not just confined to East Lewiston. We're going to live with this a long time, and it's going to be a slow process getting back to maybe where, you know, this culture was in the 1950s, where people all went to church and, you know, families. 80% of the families stayed together, and there wasn't something called drug use to the extent there is now. We're living with this for a long time. So one small attempt, my inclination to say, that's just my natural inclination. I do a little bit to support you, because if nobody else is doing nothing, that's nothing. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
My name's Jim Stitt. I'm a resident of Lewiston, Idaho. I've seen the plan for this small village, and as near as I can tell, it's not an unstructured group of young adults just hanging out. These people are going to be pretty programmed. They're going to be guided, mentored. I live in a neighborhood where a grandma across the street took in an unwanted teenage grandson. Mom and dad kicked him out. And grandma is no mentor. And that house across the street has become a party house because that child is totally unprogrammed, totally unguided, and has no program to fall back on. We get to call the cops on a regular basis. And I hate doing that because it, you know, raises the crime statistic in your own neighborhood. And just because grandma's trying to be kind, but grandma's not being, I guess, disciplined enough. And as I understand, this program is going to be quite disciplined, and it's not really homeless. They're going to live in houses. They're going to be there for 3 years and move on. It's not going to be a revolving door. I think this is going to be a welcome addition to Lewiston. Thanks.
Thank you. All righty. We'll close the citizen comments then. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight and sharing your views. That's very important to city government. Council, we'll move on to Roman numeral 4, consent agenda, and I'm going to check in with our councilors at home and surprise them. Councilor Lidke and Councilor Speckelmeyer, can you still hear us?
Yes, I'm still here, Mayor. Thanks.
Good to go.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we'll move on to Roman numeral 4, consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no discussion on these issues unless the councilor so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on the active agenda under items moved from the consent agenda. Councilors.
Mayor,
Councilor Schroeder.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Forsman to approve the consent agenda. Clerk Brockie.
Counselor Spiegelmeier,
Aye.
Counselor Lidke. Aye. Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Schroeder. Aye. Counselor Forsman. Aye. Council President Kleberg.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Next, we move to Roman numeral 5, active agenda. Item A, Resolution 2024-50, concerning approval of the lease agreement between the City of Lewiston and the LC Valley Youth Resource Center, Inc., to lease real property commonly known as East End Park to allow the LC Valley Youth Resource Center, Inc. to develop, operate, and maintain a transitional housing village for young adults. This is an action item, but before we get to that, council, we're going to ask our city attorney, Ms. Jennifer Tangano, to take the stand. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Jennifer Tangano, City Attorney for the City of Lewiston. I'm here today to speak about proposed Resolution 2024-50 related to Transitional Housing Village. This isn't my presentation. This is a presentation that was developed by Ms. King to allow for, if the council has any questions, as a part of giving this presentation, I'm going to afford Ms. King a couple of minutes, about 5 minutes, just to speak about the purpose of this proposed lease and the proposed project before I get into my specific talking points about the specifics of the lease agreement itself and the city's authority to lease the property.
Thank you. I actually have a timer, so I'm going to stay on track. Michelle King, City of Lewiston. Thank you, council, for hearing this today and for considering the lease. I know we've been at this it's been 9 months since we started this process, specifically for this specific property. So I'm going to just hit a couple slides of who we are and what we do. But for those who don't know, we did provide overnight shelter for 28 different kids this year, 864 nights of shelter. I'm going to let this slide speak for itself, but for those at home, in case you can't see it, it does say, we've been in that moment when a kid decided between life and suicide 44 times. The LC Valley's death by suicide rate is 3 times the national average, and many of these suicide interventions have been in the 2 weeks before a kiddo turned 18 because they don't know where they're going to go. Current Lewiston stats. If you didn't know this, in Lewiston School District right now, there are 158 homeless students and 39 of those identify as unaccompanied youth. So why the village? And the specific answer is that I went to the board of directors and I said, I can't handle it anymore. We spend all this time helping these kiddos from when they're 12 years old until their 18th birthday, and then we drop them into homelessness. So we agreed to break the cycle and create opportunities. So why do 18-year-olds need someplace specific built for them? Well, we have limited rental inventory. They don't have credit. They don't have rental history. They need first, last, and deposit, and that would really be hard for an 18-year-old high school student to put together. I have to apologize. I'm speaking fast because I really want to respect how much time you've already invested here this evening. So if you have questions or if I'm talking too fast, raise your hand because I come from broadcasting where we speak quickly. So the village is 12 tiny house cottages that are just a bedroom with a bathroom. The kitchen is in the activity center, which is where the United Way is now. It's priority placement for center guests, active high school students, and kids exiting foster care. And we really are going to focus in on that 18 to 20-year-old demographic with our programming. And we have everything specifically built for that. And it is legal for us to identify to that specific group. It also means that we won't have any trouble with alcohol or cannabis or any tobacco because they'll just be too young to even purchase it. But this is a layout of what the plan is. You do see that in the middle of it, there's the moat. That's the city drain. We have friendly named it the moat there. So who are the villagers? They're Lewiston, Clarkston young adults. The big thing is their kids working on goals. And you heard from 3 of them tonight. They're busting their butt. We have a responsibility as a community to come alongside them. They can't be criminals. They have to submit to drug testing, and they have to be working their program. This is not a place to lollygag. So really, the villagers will be survivors, and I think you heard a lot of that. In Idaho, you only have to text your child once a year to meet the minimum requirements for parenting. That is in state law, so feel free to contact your legislature. But in the meantime, yeah, these are kids who fight through it. Now, tonight we're talking about 1/3 of an acre of bare land that has a utility easement on it, and it's adjacent to a moat, and it's been categorized as surplus for 17 years. And it is the only land that meets all of the requirements in city code to be able to have a transitional housing village. So this is where we're talking about. There's the United Way building, the moat, and the city land there with the little pen marks around it, right? And for those who remember when we talked about this with the homeless committee before, we had a pivot table. If you want, I have my laptop, we can go back to the pivot table, but I will tell you that when you go all the way through this, this is the one spot where this can exist and meet all the criteria. So why approve the lease tonight? So when we started this, the United Way graciously accepted an offer from us to purchase their building, conditioned on approval of the conditional use permit. That has been met. We are buying the United Way building. That purchase is going through, but the whole project can't exist without this tandem land. So we are asking tonight that you would please approve the lease that we talked about clear back in April when we started this discussion. Now, neighbors have asked and mentioned, and I said this when we had the community forum in this room back in August, here's our phone number, here's my email address. I am happy to have coffee with you, meet with you, bring you to the center for a tour, and collaborate. We want to be good neighbors. And you heard from some of our neighbors now that we really do actively do that. So again, it's 1/3 of an acre. It's not worth $1 million, I promise, that has an easement and a moat, and it's cheatgrass. But it's an opportunity for you to provide hope for abandoned and abused children when they turn 18 in our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, Jennifer Tangano again. So talking over the specifics of this particular lease agreement, as far as the city council's ability to enter into this lease, Idaho cities are vested with great discretion into leasing city-owned property, and it has very few limits. It's considered a purely discretionary function entrusted to the elected officials, and absent a clear abuse of that discretion, any decisions made thereunder are typically not overturned on appeal. There was talk about a conditional use permit. That conditional use permit hasn't been approved. It's final as of today. The last day to seek judicial review was today by 5 o'clock. As far as I'm aware, no petition has been filed for such. So that means that the conditional use permit 24-3 is final. And so anything related specifically to the standards and criteria related to that conditional use permit is not currently before the city council, and it's considered a binding decision that is not appealable at this point. As far as the purpose and the scope of this particular lease agreement, we are here today because at the May 6, 2024 City Council work session, there was a request by Ms. King on behalf of the Youth Resource Center to consider leasing this property to them for the purposes that wasn't quite yet discussed in detail, because part of that request included a request for permission to seek a conditional use permit. That is a quasi-judicial function of the city council, so there are many limits on what the city council can hear and what information can be received prior to a public hearing or prior to that particular application being final. Throughout the application process, it's heavily governed by Idaho code, and there are very strict limitations on what we call ex parte communications or discussions about the matter outside of the public hearing and the public record itself. All information received about the conditional use permit was limited to the public hearing to establish a public record on the matter, and the city council and the planning and zoning commission were not permitted by state law to consider matters that were not brought up during the public hearing process. So matters as far as discussions related to the uses wasn't specifically brought up, but a general discussion about what the vision for the use of the property was at that May 6th City Council work session. At that time, the City Council made a motion to acknowledge the property known as East End Park as not being needed for city purposes, and directed staff to draft a lease agreement with the LC Valley Youth Resource Center and give the LC Valley Youth Resource Center permission to apply for the conditional use permit. And that motion passed with a 4-2 vote. And that was also conditioned on the conditional use permit being approved. In the event that it was not approved, then no need to negotiate or enter into a lease was needed at that point. As mentioned, the conditional use permit was granted and all appeal periods have expired and the decision is final. Before you is a ground lease for review and approval pursuant to prior city council direction to negotiate and draft the lease agreement. The lease agreement is specifically intended to support a transitional housing development for teens transitioning out of the foster care system. Paragraph 2 of the lease purpose provides that the sole purpose of this lease is to allow lessee to develop, operate, and maintain a transitional housing village development on the premises. It explicitly limits the use of the property to this purpose and stipulates that the development cannot be converted into a homeless shelter or used for any other purpose without the lessor's express consent. Paragraph 7, alterations, provides that the lessee may not make alterations other than for the lease purpose without written consent of the city. There are also additional limitations as far as paragraph 5, conditions of the premises, that provides in developing the premises to meet the purpose of the lease, lessee agrees to comply with all conditions of approval placed on the approval of CUP 24-3. As far as a default, in paragraph 11, sub A, under default, sub 2i provides that the lessee may be in default for any violation of the use restrictions set forth in this lease or CUP 24-3. So there are limitations built into as far as the scope of the lease agreement being used for a transitional housing village. As far as the lease price and the terms, the lease price is set at $100 per year for 50 years, which aligns with comparable lease values for similar public lands used for public benefit projects. Paragraph 4 addresses the rent. This pricing reflects the city's commitment to supporting community-centered initiatives while adhering to standard practices for public land leases. This price reflects the nature of a ground lease where the lessee is expected to make significant investments in improving the land, including constructing and maintaining the transitional housing facility. Ground leases typically have lower initial rent because the lessee bears the cost of these improvements, which benefits the public and reduces the financial burden on the city. Other city leases that we currently have include the Adams Lane Apartments, which is $1 per year for 99 years with the option to extend for another $1 per year for another 99 years. This is a ground lease similar to this particular project. Another lease is the Territorial Capitol Building lease, which is also $1 per year for 50 years and may be extended for an undetermined amount of time upon agreement of the parties. As you can see, when the city leases public lands, it is not for profit. The city is limited to leasing lands not for profit. The services and fees the city charges is governed by state law, and the city cannot charge more for providing a service than it actually costs the city to provide that service. These leases are often done in accordance with that guideline while it's not specifically addressed under state laws relating to leases because it relates to the financial needs of the city. Often these leases are drafted with the public purposes in mind and not for profit. The provisions of this particular lease are specific to a ground lease. It allows the lessor to retain the long-term ownership of the land while enabling the lessee to develop the use and use it for a defined purpose. Paragraph 3, the term of the lease, points out that this is a 50-year lease with the option to extend for up to 5 terms of an additional 5 years each. Most instances, ground leases are in excess of 75 to 99 years with options to extend for similar periods. This particular lease is less than most common ground leases because the ground lease is intended for the useful life of the structures built thereon. While it's not entirely clear what the useful life of a tiny home is, 50 years was a negotiated provision between the city and the Youth Resource Center as being a fair estimate of what the anticipated life of these particular structures. In this case, the lease ensures that the property remains dedicated for residential use for transitional housing while the lessee invests in constructing and maintaining the development. The improvements made by the lessee enhance the land's utility and value, contributing to the public good without additional costs to the city. Paragraph 14 addresses removal of improvements provides that the removal of improvements at the end of the lease and that all improvements revert to the city, but the city has the option to waive this by giving the lessee 60 days notice and that all improvements must be removed from the property. In the event that this lease is terminated either at the end of the term or for a default or a breach of the lease, then the city has the option to either keep the improvements on the property or to require the lessee to remove all those improvements. Ultimately, this lease, as proposed, provides for residential uses of this site and aligns with the community's need and enhances the neighborhood vitality. Currently, the property is in the light industrial M1 zone, which permitted uses include uses such as auto, RV, and heavy equipment sales and service, boat sales and marina, indoor commercial entertainment facilities, commercial and industrial laundry facilities, eating and drinking establishments, general contracting and storage yards, greenhouses, nurseries, and more. The addition of a transitional housing provides critical resources to at-risk youth while fostering a sense of community and stability with them. This use is preferable to the light industrial activities permitted outright on the site, which could generate traffic, noise, or environmental impacts inconsistent with neighborhood character. By facilitating a residential project, the lease supports the city's broader goals of promoting livability and addressing housing needs for vulnerable at-risk populations within the city. As a municipal entity, the city is limited in its ability to profit from use of public lands. As previously mentioned, Idaho statutes limit the charges for services and fees a city may charge, and this lease prioritizes the public benefit over the revenue generation, reflecting the city's commitment to community-centered initiatives. Overall, this particular lease will ultimately add money into the budget instead of taking away through maintenance and other city staff involvement with the project. There is a public purpose to this project as well. While not previously discussed in this particular matter, but in other areas where requests to the city to use city property have been brought up, the city must use its lands that it owns for public purposes. This project addresses a critical public need by providing housing and support for local youth aged 18 to 20. Lease of the property now does not impede the city's determination that the property may be needed in the future for a public purpose, as it is within the power of the council to decide whether or not a public purpose is needed or whether or not the city is needed for city needs. Priority placement in this particular project is given to youth who are still in high school, individuals transitioning out of foster care, and existing residents of the lessee. This particular lease and initiative supports the stability and independence of vulnerable youth populations, creating a pathway for successful adulthood. This project exemplifies the city's policy goals of fostering community welfare and ensuring appropriate land use and enhancing neighborhood character. The transitional housing development serves as a model for how ground leases can be leveraged to meet public needs while maintaining fiscal responsibility and long-term land stewardship. A lease now does not impede the city's ability to sell the land at public auction later. The lease will transfer with the sale of the land. The city would want to ensure that any rent proceeds received are transferred to a new owner proportionate to the remainder of the lease term in the event a surplus public auction of this land were to occur after the lease was to be entered. As far as approval of this particular lease agreement, the city council may approve it as is, or you may request additional revisions be made to the lease itself. While the lease is not currently signed by the LC Valley Youth Resource Center, they have conditionally approved it pending confirmation of the legal description that's included in this particular lease. I've subsequently received confirmation that this is the legal description for that property, and so it would otherwise be ready for the Youth Resource Center's signature, regardless of the city council's decision, consistent with the city's policy to have signed agreements before it for consideration, and that's the only reason why it's not currently signed. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. I'm going to go to Councilors Spicklemeyer and Councilor Lidke, listening in from home tonight to see if they have any questions first for City Attorney Jennifer Tingano.
No, I didn't have any questions for the attorney.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lidke?
Yeah, I just have the one question, and I did review the May 6th work session where we did have a vote to it was 4-2 and that declared the property as not used or necessary for the city, but we did not have language in there that we actually put it to surplus. So we've never seen a value of that piece of property. Am I correct in that?
As far as I've been able to determine, at this point, we have not established a recent value. However, in 2007, 2008 timeframe, when the property was declared as surplus by the city council, it was anticipated to be sold for $38,000, and that money would be put into the parks budget. However, the city council subsequently split on actually making a decision to sell the property. So while there was a resolution declaring the land as surplus, the city never actually followed through with the public auction of the property, which resulted in a $38,000 budget deficit at that time.
Follow up.
Counselor?
So that was some confusion I had with the staff report, that there was some language in there that led me to believe that it had been voted to be surplus, and then a follow-up the following fiscal year, a second vote was voted and the surplus was denied. Is that correct? Or the scenario you just described, is that? I'm just trying to determine, have we actually surplus this property? Because for me, it's not very clear.
So the city started the process of going through the surplus public auction, but it never actually completed the process. So the property was declared as being surplus, but once it got to the point of establishing a value and scheduling the public auction of the property, the city council decided not to pursue that. And it was tabled for later discussions, and later discussions were kind of back and forth on whether or not to actually sell the land. And since then, it's been discussed as being quote unquote surplus, but no action has been taken to actually sell the land. Whether or not the property is in a position of being considered quote unquote surplus, I would say that that is a city council decision that the city has elected to retain ownership of the property since 2008. And so it's still on the city's books. Whether or not it's considered surplus, I would recommend going through that process all over again so that any discrepancies in the record are clarified.
Thank you. I would just note that I did second that motion, not because I was in support of the conditional use permit moving forward, but that I was hoping to see a value on the surplus land to then move on how we dealt with this property. And at this point, my position is and has always been that if we are supportive of any project, we need to be as far removed from it as we can, which would mean that we would not own the property.
Mayor and council, for a quick follow-up, in the event that the property were surplus, the city would not likely sell the full property, so it would be less than the 1/3 acre, because the city would need to reserve both the easement for a vista as a part of that property, as well as the easement area for the stormwater drainage. So that would potentially take a portion out of the property that is the length of the south side of the property by another 20 to 30 feet. So in the event the property were to be sold at surplus, that would be another consideration, that there would be some reservations of that property. So the city would still retain ownership at the very least of the stormwater drainage canal, plus an additional 10 to 20 feet for maintenance purposes.
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor?
In one of our reports, it listed a gentleman's name, and I'm not remembering his last name, but also the Idaho Transportation Department as parties either associated with or part owners of this property. Has that been clarified? as to ITD's relationship to this property.
Counselor, I'm not familiar with that. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if that exists or not.
In answering that question, Mayor, Councilor Lidke, based on my investigation of the property and confirmation of the legal description, the city owns the legal description, the property that's legally described in here. It might have, the question that might have been related to a third party named from back in the early history of the property, in which I believe all of those interests have long been settled.
Okay, I'm going off of documentation I found online, and I apologize. I have a cold medicine head, but I believe it was in the Parks and Rec master plan. And so my understanding was that was up to date. So that is why I asked the question, and I would caution us to make sure that we knew exactly who has a hand in that property before we were to make any move of any kind.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, questions, comments?
Oh, go ahead.
Council President Kleberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going back to the 2008 period as when I first got on the city council, and I can tell everybody here that one of the big reasons why nothing was ever moved on that piece of property is because all the little kids in the neighborhood came down to the city council and said, don't take our park. And they were serious about it. And I've always said that, don't mess with the park. That goes back a long ways. I kind of still feel that way, but that was one of the big deals there. As far as the fishing or the Idaho Department of Transportation goes, I have no knowledge of any ownership on their part. So that's all I've got on that.
Thank
Mayor?
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you
Counselor?
through? Okay, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-50.
Second.
Second that, Counselor Forsman.
I did.
It's been moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Counselor Forsman, to approve Resolution 2024-50. Counselor Schroeder, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would, actually. You probably recall, if you were in this room, when there was an outreach, a public outreach. I got up and I spoke when I should not have been, because it was quasi-judicial, and I was reprimanded for that. But I would do it again because I want to support these people. No, I wouldn't do it again, but I totally support them, and that's why I got caught up in the emotions of supporting them. So I was at an outreach, and most of you people that lived there were there. So that's my comment.
Do we already, Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Forsman?
Did we already pass questions for? Can I ask questions still to attorney?
Yes.
Okay. And I went over this agreement with you extensively. We read through it so that I would understand it, because you know legal wording more than I do. And you explained it to me very well. Thank you. I did want to go over one more thing again, because I couldn't remember. In the event that there was some kind of legal dispute, that holds on to whoever is leasing the property, correct? Not the city.
Yes, Counselor. So paragraph 16, indemnification, provides that as a material part of the consideration of this lease, that lessee waives all claims, demands, losses, actions, causes of action, suits, damages, judgments, obligations, liabilities, costs, expenses, and/or injuries to persons or property arising out of or in connection with any acts or omissions of the lessee, its officers, agents, or employees, or that arise or are in any way connected with, from any cause, arising at any time from lessee's use of the premises unless said claims result from the lessors or the lessors, officers, agents, or employees' gross negligence. This also provides at the last sentence that this obligation extends to all claims occurring after this lease is terminated or expired, as well as while this lease is in force, and will continue until all claims are finally adjudicated and fully and finally barred by applicable laws. So really what that says is that as a material part of the consideration of this lease, that the Youth Resource Center waives any potential liability against the city unless the city is directly related for the liability. So under Idaho law and Idaho constitutional law, the city is limited in its ability to indemnify people and parties that are not agents of the city. Just by the fact of there being a lease doesn't mean that the Youth Resource Center is an agent of the city. And this particular provision provides that they waive any liability on behalf of their part and any resident that enters into an agreement or a lease with them. So my understanding is that their residents will enter into essentially subleases for their little tiny homes, and so it waives the liability against the city in those instances. The only way that the city would be liable is if the city was liable or was the cause of that damage through its own gross negligence. So it does provide for that, and it goes through the full statutory period of limitations, whether or not there is a lease in effect.
Thank you.
Councillor Lidke?
Yeah, I'll just start with that. The follow-up, two things you mentioned, that if we were to surplus, we would do an easement for Vista and stormwater. Makes me nervous to think that this lease indemnifies us, except for the two things that I think bring some general concern as to the ability to serve the area, especially if it's improvement. The question I have is then, can you determine that we would be free of all of that? I think that it could be costly to us if something were to happen. We are talking about adults, but we are also talking about adults who just left childhood, so their peers are going to be under the age of 18 and could be on the property. There's just a lot of things that really bring concern with the city being somewhat indemnified, but not entirely. And I think we all can understand that unless we were to remove ourselves entirely, we are in the potential of being sued. We've seen it over the last 3 years. My other question is that HUD grants through the Community Development Block Grant, I have concerns with the city using those funds to essentially improve their own property. I feel like that could be a situation where it could cut all ties and abilities of eligibility for the center to be approved for such things, when if they were to actually own the property, it wouldn't, we would remove that that issue of possible recoupment of funds or further eligibility for those funds. I would just caution us. I feel like that there's the need is there, 100% that we serve these kids. However, is Lewiston, Idaho, City of Lewiston, Idaho, in the position to do so? I do not think that that is where we need to be focusing our time and attention. I believe that we will continue to work with great nonprofits that are serving, but do we want this close of a relationship with any of them? And I would say no. I think that this property is something that we need to either make improvements on and invest in, or cut the line and sell it as surplus property to the highest bidder.
Council, further comments? Council President Kleber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sort of agree with Councilor Lidke on that last couple of comments, but I'm trying to take the emotion out of this. And the way I look at it is, this is the last piece of green space that we have down there in East Main, regardless of who's living in the neighborhood now. And I just wonder how many people on the Parks and Rec Commission think this is a good idea of getting rid of green space. I can give you a little bit of history on the park. Our former director, Tim Barker, where part of this started, this was several years ago, was they did not do anything about the irrigation out there. So consequently, on some of the pictures that we've seen, the grass looks like it does on the Lewiston Hill in August. It's brown. That park could be a green space. Very easy. The justification, or the, I guess, not necessarily justification, but the thinking at the time was anything that was less than 5 acres wasn't worth maintaining. Sending somebody out there with a mower, to cut that little piece of grass, making sure it was getting irrigated. And that's, that was a decision that was made, but we will be getting a new Parks and Rec director, I'm assuming, at some point in time, Mr. Mayor. And they might have a different, opinion. I got shot down by the county over the same very thing, was green space where the new courthouse is. And I wasn't kidding. They kind of took it maybe a little lighthearted, but I wasn't kidding at all. There was a piece of green space right down there on a corner of that property that they're going to develop that they easily could have saved to have a place for somebody that was there because one of their loved ones was on trial or whatever, and they were taking a break, gave them a place to go out and sit. And it wouldn't have been that hard. So as we keep gnawing up the green space downtown, I mean, what do we got left? You got Brackenbury Square. And pretty much about it. So that's where I'm coming from on this. I have a real tough time sacrificing green space. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor?
This hasn't been a green space for a very long time, and I have a feeling that the people that will be occupying that area is going to keep it much nicer than it has been, and I am supportive of, there is no green space there to be lost, so they're going to take better care of than what it has been. And I know that you are passionate about your green space, but I think in this time, you should give that one up.
Mayor, councilors, so to address the concern about liability, paragraph 12 of the lease agreement provides that the lessee is to procure and maintain at its sole expense and throughout the continuation of the lease a commercial general liability insurance policy covering personal injury, death, and property damage with a minimum combined single limit coverage of $1 million, and that the city will be named as an additional insured. So as a part of that, typically defense in the event of a claim is made against it is included. And going back to paragraph 16, in the event that the city as lessor is alleged to be liable on account of any act or omission of the lessee, the Youth Resource Center, then the Youth Resource Center is responsible for all costs and expenses associated with defending those claims. So those particular aspects are covered in this lease agreement, while once it actually comes down to court practice, what's in the agreement versus what actually happens in real life is a matter for the courts. The city is at least covered contractually to have the cost of those defenses covered and be named as an additional assured to the insurance itself. the insurance policy itself. As far as any situation where the city itself would be liable, the city still has all of its statutory sovereign immunities, and it's not waiving any of that as a part of entering into this lease. And part of the liability of the city is actually a heightened liability. The city is not liable for any negligence it causes, but only gross negligence, which typically results in a willful and wanton disregard for the safety or the standards in place. So there is a higher standard of liability put on the city as far as any acts or omissions that would occur at the property. So there was some consideration as far as the liability of the city in the event, you know, there was something that happened at the premises itself.
Mayor,
Thank you, Jen.
Mr. Bear?
did we address the HUD money that we get and whether this would compromise us getting future funds?
Counselor, as far as in considering this particular lease agreement, that was not a part of the consideration, but I think Michelle King has an answer to that because that is not a part of the lease itself.
Michelle King, Lewiston, Idaho, president of the LC Valley Youth Resource Center. So one of our long-term partners is Idaho Housing, and they have been kind enough to share resources of their legal counsel who has been through all of this and is aware of our conditional award of the CDBG funding. We have also reviewed all of our building and operational funding sources with them, and there are no conflicts or concerns with regard to this leasing property. As a matter of fact, it's actually very common. So,
thank you.
Mr. Mayor? I'd like to speak to the $100 a year lease agreement amount. There's been mention that if we surplus it, we'd have to have an easement. So I guess I'd like a breakdown of what exactly that $100 would, if we're not supposed to receive a profit, are we covering staff time to manage that easement? What exactly makes this appealing to us as making sure that all of our costs would be covered?
Councilor Lidkey, there was no specific consideration as far as the actual personnel costs. The costs to maintain it were not investigated. I know there's been prior discussion about what the Parks and Rec Department has invested or what they think would be required to invest in the property. The $100 lease amount was actually proposed by the LC Valley Youth Resource Center when there was first discussions about the lease amount. Many city leases, as I previously mentioned, are for $1 or $10. So there was discussion about what would be a reasonable amount. Many of those lease agreements actually don't require prepayment of the lease amount either. It requires a per year payment that oftentimes goes uncollected because it's discretionary whether or not the city collects that amount. So having the value be $100 and prepaid was to provide the city the most benefit as far as incorporating that money into its funds, whether it be put into Parks Fund, a general fund, or anything of that nature. There was no specific consideration as far as the actual cost that it will save because of the fact that the city no longer being required to maintain the grounds itself, not necessarily the stormwater easement, is where the savings would ultimately be realized. The city is still going to be responsible for maintaining that stormwater system regardless of whether it leases the property or it sells it at public auction.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor?
To Council President Kleberg's comment about taking the emotion out of it, I'm really looking at this as the long-term benefits to the city of Lewiston. And over the last 3 years, we have spent a lot of money. And I'm going to be the first to admit that I have voted for things that I have looked back on with having to eat a little crow. And I'm sure many of the people in the crowd and watching or reading the newspaper will agree. And in that 3 years, as we've made decisions, I have to look at what is the overall benefit for the city if we continue to participate in situations where we have not fully vetted what is this going to long-term cost us. When we look at and we say to people that we are in negotiated bargaining agreements with, and we say we need you to produce more, or that you need to make sure that agreements made with other agencies make sure that the buyout and the payback to the city of Lewiston is where it needs to be. I would expect the same for this. And while I think that situations like this have occurred and have occurred successfully in other cities, this is a situation where we are looking at trying to figure out a sustainable budget moving forward. While this piece of property is small, it is also something that I think should not be ours if we're no longer going to invest in it fully. And in my mind, that's the answer, is then to surplus and allow for people. I've heard from people that had they known that it was a possibility, they would have put in for a situation. I am not shutting down the idea of this program. I am involved in programs like that. There are resources available to our teens and young adults that are working together as we speak to make these things viable. And I think that this is not a closed door. This is an opportunity for us as a council to make a solid decision in protecting the assets of the city. And I cannot support a lease that is not fully vetted to ensure that we're getting the most bang, especially when you're putting it on the hook for 50 years. And in all actuality, we talk about kicking the can down the road a lot. And I'm not okay with signing a 50-year lease.
Thank you, Council.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman?
To go on, when we first had the first discussion of a possible homeless shelter being put on G Street, I was part of that, denying that approval and voted nay. And then Councilor, at the time, Cowsley, and I got on the homeless committee because I didn't want to be the person that just said, I don't want it. I don't want it in my neighborhood. I like it, I agree with it, but I don't think it should be somewhere else. I wanted to see, can we actually put this homeless shelter somewhere else? And I was at that meeting, and there was so limited places to put these shelters. And we went through it, and there was people over there that was opposing to it. And most of those people were opposing to it because they said, let's put these people that are in this shelter to work. And that's what this is going to do. They're going to work. They're going to get a credit score. They're going to build up their lives so that they can get out there and become productive society. You want to complain about the homeless, but you don't want to do anything about it. You know, you complain that we got people coming into my house and trying to get in my house, but you don't want to get rid of it. You just want to stand there and complain about it. This is an opportunity for us to stand as a community and make a difference. I understand that we look at this as we could make money out of it. I didn't realize we were in the community to make money. I thought we were in the community to help each other in times of need. And I will tell you, there is a lot of businesses, big businesses out there that are going to support the people in need and that give money to give these people a hand up and not give them away. Here's your free handout. Give them a hand up so they can get out there. And I commend these young gentlemen for coming up here and talking in front of the people that have so horribly talked about them without even having a conversation with them. It is honestly disgusting. I understand the fear behind homelessness and that you're gonna have it get worse. I get that. And I've seen it. I've been to cities where it's bad. But you have them standing here and saying that they want to be a part of society. They want to contribute to property taxes and being a part of our working force. But yet you don't want to help them. You just want to send them off to the next neighborhood. And I can tell you, no matter what neighborhood we try to present this into, they're going to complain. They're going to say, I don't want it in my backyard. That's just going to be a thing. It's a common thing. And we're going to hear that everywhere we go until finally some citizens say, you know what, let's be part of the solution instead of denying that it's a problem. I just can't, I can't sit here and say I'm going to take my emotion out of it and then watch as I had a family member that was a drug addict and he was out in the streets and he didn't have help. We couldn't help him because he didn't want it. But finally, an organization came together and helped him come clean. And now he makes money, he goes and travels, and he's a productive person to society because someone believed in him. I can't imagine if my kid was out there with no one to hold him, a home, a bed, someone to give him a leg up, or even have confidence. What gives people confidence is when they have a purpose. And having a purpose is when you as a community say, we are your purpose, and we are here to help you make it. I did not take this decision lightly. I looked into it. I looked into other small houses, villages, to see if they were successful. Are they falling apart? Has this worked anywhere else? And it has. Actually, Seattle. It works in Seattle, and they have it there, and they have homeless coming in there, and that's not 18 to 21. Those are adult people that, for whatever reason, maybe had a surgery, lost their job because their medical bills consumed them, and then they lost their house. So now they're on the street. They have nowhere to go. And so now this homeless, this little small village has given them a purpose to get a leg up again. That's what churches are for, right, too. We have churches to be able to do that for that. And we as a community can go into that too and stand behind our churches that are taking the time to also stand for our community and our kids or who else needs help. And this was successful. This small village was successful, and they wanted to see it. And it was a 2-hour interview of what they did, how they did it. And it was the same situation. It was a city property that they leased out to build a village. And the same thing, the people around that neighborhood were against it. They were unhappy with it. How dare you put that in our backyard? And then 90% of them changed their minds once it was there. When we get up here and make these decisions and we talk about the future of Lewiston, if we want to continue to have a homeless problem and we want to become to places like Seattle, that is your future of Lewiston if we're not going to care about it. Someone has to care. And I, for one, want to see us make a difference. We can find green space. We have a gigantic park that people want to spend $95 million on to go. That's plenty of green space. And we're talking about a little parcel that we can't afford to give up because we're worried about we're worried about money because we want money. You talk all the time, we're saying, let's give money to our citizens. Let's give money to the people that need it. And they stand up here and yell at us as council and say, how dare you not care about your citizens? And this is the time we can care about our citizens. And you have people up here that are trying to put the time, the hard work into it. They're in there in the muck doing it. And Councilor Towsley, he didn't even know anything about it. But he decided after he got out of council to get involved, figure out what was the problem. And I, for one, want to do more of that, to be a part of it and not just complain about it. And again, I understand, and this will be my last note, I understand the frustration behind it being in your backyard. And I would totally feel the same way. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm a golden child and I'd say, come in my backyard. I would have all the same fears you would. But I would hope that I would be the kind of person that goes and talks to those people and gives them the benefit of the doubt and not just assumes that they're horrible, they're stealing, they're murderers, all these horrible things. For them to stand there and listen to you guys just berate them and give them false of who they really are, I commend you for still coming up and being cordial with the amount of hate that is being spewed, with false stereotyping that is being put on these kids. I'm not saying that there isn't homeless out there that are not good and that do destroy the area. But we're not talking about a homeless shelter. We're talking about a leg up. And you can shake your head all you want, but that's what it is.
Mayor. Oh.
Thank you, Councilor.
I just wanted to speak real quick as far as not doing a cost analysis in relation to the cost of the lease. It's a standard municipal practice to have these type of ground leases for public purposes to be such low value. Going in through and expending the time and resources to do such a cost analysis is not a standard practice for municipalities. When the city or whoever governmental entity is leasing the land, that's not a typical consideration. The consideration is this property needed for public purposes? And is this particular lease agreement just and equitable considering the circumstances? Just and equitable is not defined, and it's a very broad term. And typically the main consideration is there a public purpose behind this particular lease agreement? By leasing the property versus selling it, the city retains control over what happens at the property. Whereas if the property is sold, there's no discussion to the extent that the city is currently having where, neighbors have an opportunity to voice their concerns. As long as the city owns the property, the city can address, needs of the public through these kinds of decisions. While the lease is for an extended period of time, again, as I previously noted, it's for less time than most of these other leases are for, and it's for either the same as other leases the city already has or shorter than other leases the city has, where ground was leased out for the development of a housing project or other situation of that nature. So while there wasn't specific consideration on the time and labor the city already spends at that particular property, doing so would have been deviating from a typical practice that the city undergoes when it goes through and considers these types of leases. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Councilor
Mr. Mayor.
Schroeder.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If we're going to consider what the value of a 50-year lease is to 12 lives every single year for 50 years or more, what kind of a value is that to this community? To save 12 people, 12 lives every year for 50 years, I think there's a great value in that. And I'm very proud that our city is considering this. And we should all be proud of doing this.
Councilor Lidke.
Yes, and again, I don't think I've said anything to, I don't want to make a profit. That's already been addressed. I do want to cover the cost. I feel like if you're passionate about this, that's wonderful. Then you need to join a board of the program that's putting this on and doing the work, because we're the council that's supposed to be making long-term decisions for 30,000 people, not just 12 a year, not just 12 a year over 50. We aren't going to have a tax base to cover the cost of the programs that we're giving away for free if we aren't thinking long-term and ensuring that we're investing in our community in a way that serves the majority of 30,000 people. 100%. We do not want kids living on the street. I could not see the people speaking, but I didn't see anybody pointing fingers at the young men who spoke. I also commend them. I think it's wonderful what they're doing for themselves and showing their peers that it can be done. There are programs within our community that are working hard every day to serve this population and others like them. Our job here is to figure out if we are doing something that benefits over time. I've been lectured about trying to pay for things by doing other pieces of property so that we can actually move forward on projects. This is not about what happens with this land, but I think we do have to discuss that this lease is also going to allow permanent change to this piece of property. Infrastructure changes, permanent buildings, all those things are happening. Again, so the city can then take over. Well, we took over a building called the Bollinger Building, and guess what? We had to end up surplusing it and putting it up to bid multiple times. I'm just trying to figure out why the answer isn't walking away and letting a nonprofit, which I run a nonprofit, it is not fun. There's a lot of rules to abide by, but you can navigate this system and do so that it betters everybody involved. I'm simply saying, as my representation of the city of Lewiston, I don't think this is the best way to move forward. I think there's another route. And I think it frees the city of the responsibility that some of you are willing to put on us when we're not technically responsible to be involved in those projects.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, further questions, comments?
Mayor,
Counselor Klein?
I agree that,
sorry.
I agree that it would be better not to have a hand in the agreement, that it'd be better if they could own the property. But we all know that if this property does go to auction, it's not going to them, and if this project is done, right? I have faith in the organization that they will do the right thing. They will keep these kids in line. As she stated, you're welcome to go talk to her yourself and go see these kids and what they've actually done for this community, how they've changed. And I'm actually more worried about the safety of the kids from the residents of the community, talking about buying guns and their safety. But if they're willing to put up with that and stand their ground, I commend them.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Counselor. Counselor Forsman?
I am thinking about the future, right? I'm thinking about not just the future of that property, but I'm thinking about the future of the citizens that live here, and so that we can get productive people here. And so to say that I'm not thinking about that, I'm only thinking of emotion is false. I'm thinking about this in a way so we can have less people out on the streets and we can have a better Lewiston, a cleaner Lewiston, because we're giving these people a place to, we're starting when they're young. It's harder when they're older, or we're starting when they're young and they're wanting to just have someone be a parent to them, a father. If you look at statistics, the nest is not getting empty. Nearly half of young adults are living with their parents. According to a new survey by Harris Poll for Bloomingbird, about 45% of people ages 18 to 29 are living at home. They have a parent to live with. These kids don't. They don't have a parent to live with. They said, get out. Or maybe their parents in jail and they don't have a place to go. I don't know the situation. But the fact of the matter is we're in a housing crisis and we can't afford, the kids can't afford to buy houses or rent. My age, in my 30s, can barely afford to buy a house right now. And we're expecting these kids to just go out there and get a house and pay rent for $1,500 a month, get a credit score without having that help. I mean, God, I remember when I first was 18 coming here and I didn't even understand credit score. And I had to learn the hard way, putting myself in debt, getting myself out of it. When you have someone that's there helping you through that, that's a gift that we are able to offer. And again, I see what Hannah Linkty's saying, like, you know, we could sell this off. Yeah, we could, you know, sell partial of it, but we have to maintain the sewer part of it. They're already going to own one part of the building right next door. So I don't really feel like how that makes sense. And then they already have it. It's going through. And then you have this little piece of property that we really think is going to cause that much of a financial increase. And two, I don't see it. And even if they do walk away from this and we have little tiny housing villages, well, rent them out. Sell it to someone that can rent them out. And then they can have someone else live in there. And that's happened. There are houses that are small like that. They rent out for affordable pricing for people that can't afford it. And I did reach out to Michelle King. Actually, I was going to reach out to her, and she reached out to me when I was over in Seattle visiting my family because my husband's little brother is going to prison because he accidentally drunk and drive and hit. And this has nothing to do with it. But I was there to support him because they made wrong choice. And so I've talked to her about it. I asked my questions about were you active with the community? Were you talking to them? I don't know if she got to every one of you. Maybe she didn't. I don't know because I'm not there. I'm not seeing that. But I do know I asked the attorney and all the questions of this. I wasn't comfortable with this long lease. I wasn't. But they're also putting a lot of money into this property to make it come to fruition. So they're putting eggs in the basket. And so it's a risk for them too. So for us to kind of be stingy and just say, we want it this way, I don't see it. And yeah, maybe we could have put that up for other businesses, but I don't see those businesses here. Everybody keeps speaking for other businesses. Where are they? If they wanted this property, why aren't they here saying, I would have bought it? I mean, I might have put more beat behind that if I had seen them here saying that they want to see it. All I see is other people saying it's happening. He said, she said. They should be here. If they wanted that property, they came up. They were listening. They heard that we were thinking about it. And they were here right on Johnny on the spot and said, what can we do? Can we have it? I didn't see other businesses doing that. They still had an opportunity tonight to do that. And I didn't see it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Spickelmeyer or Counselor Lickey, any closing comments before I?
Nope, I didn't have any. Thanks, Mayor.
Counselors, further comments here? No? Clerk Brockie?
Counselor Spickelmeyer,
Nay.
Counselor Lidkey,
Nay.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder. Aye. Counselor Forsman. Aye. Council President Kleberg.
Hey.
Three.
Mayor Johnson votes aye. Okay, for those in the audience, I know this is a tough issue. It's a tough issue for all of us, but I want to tell you that I'm going to make a commitment to coming to your community and to your neighborhoods, and I'm going to do what I can to help improve things there. I know that you've had some challenges there, and I know that the Lewiston Police Department spends time up there, and they're doing the best that they can. I know our fire department's been up there, and they're trying to help everyone in this community, not just the folks who live on this block and other blocks. So in terms of that green space there, you know, I think it's unfortunate that the city didn't take action in the past and follow through maybe on some things that they told some folks in that community about making it a green space or making it a park. I feel for that, and I think that's bad. And so this project is timely. I think it's a good project. I think it's going to do good things for the neighborhood, good things for the city. So I'm committed to that. I'll work on that. But I will work equally hard for your neighborhood. Anything that comes up, all you have to do is call me and come by. And I will put in the time. I will make the effort. We don't pick and choose other places where we want to spend more money or other places are more equal than others. So please let us know. And if you have some concerns up there, our police chief, Jason Cusick, is in the room tonight. He heard everything that you said. And I know that he will talk to his officers if there's some additional needs up there, and we'll send people there to help. So I just thank you for your patience and understanding, and I invite you to work with us, work with the community, work with the Youth Resource Center, assuming they can get this across the finish line, and let's do this together as a city. So thank you very much for your time and patience tonight. Next up, we have item B, IFB-24-021, library lighting upgrades. Considering awarding the base bid and add alternate one for IFB-24-021, library lighting upgrades to CNC Electric LLC for a total of $225,575, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. This is an action item.
Mayor,
Councilor Schroeder.
I move to approve IFB-24-021, the base bid and add alternate.
Just a minute. I need you to be quiet, please, and exit the room because we have a live meeting going on here. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Schroeder.
The base bid and add alternate one for library lighting upgrades to CNC Electric LLC in the amount of $222,575. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Okay. And authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Councilor Schroeder, seconded by Council President Kleberg to award IFB-24-021, the base bid and add alternate one for library lighting upgrades to CNC Electric LLC in the amount of $222,575, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Clerk Brockie.
Counselor Spickelmeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Lidkey,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman. Aye. Council President Kleber.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Clerk Brocky, who was the second on that again?
Council President Kleber.
Thank you. Council, next up, we have item C, Resolution 2024-49, considering a resolution declaring items of city property to be surplus and authorizing the purchasing division to trade in the specified surplus property on an as-is, no warranty or guarantee basis in exchange for credit to be applied toward the purchase of a new property of a similar nature. We have with us tonight our Chief, Fire Chief, Chief Reitmeyer. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening and Merry Christmas. What we have before you, we received 2 grants this year from the state to replace older gurneys that we have with the new electric lift gurneys that have more, a better cycle time, lifespan, I guess is the right word, a longer lifespan than the gurneys that we had. In addition, they have a retention system inside of the ambulance that keeps them mounted to the floor in the event that the ambulance were to be hit and rolled over or any kind of that, so that the gurney stays where it's supposed to be. So these are this completes the rest of our fleet of switching out to the new style of gurneys. In order to do that, they give us a trade-in value for $5,000 per gurney of the old style gurney that we had. And so this is before you to surplus 2 of those gurneys in exchange, or as part of the rebate that we get from the company to purchase the 2 new gurneys. Stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Clerk, or Councilor Forsman?
Was I too soon? Was I too soon to make a motion? Okay. Motion to approve resolution 2024-49. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Forsman, second by Councilor Schroeder to approve Resolution 2024-49. Is there further discussion? If not, Clerk Brocky?
Counselor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Counselor Lidke. Aye. Counselor Klein.
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder.
Aye.
Counselor Forsman. Aye. Council President Kleber.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Next, item D, recommended process for city council vacancy. Considering approval of the mayor's recommended process for reviewing applications for the city council vacancy pursuant to Lewiston City Code, Section 2-25, Sub B. Councilors, you should have in your packet on page 62 of 319 the recommended process for a council vacancy. And if you've had a chance to review that and have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Councilors?
I move to approve the mayor's recommended process for reviewing applications for the city council vacancy pursuant to Lewiston City Code Section 2-25.
Second.
Thank you.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, seconded by Councilor Spickelmeyer to approve the mayor's recommended process for reviewing applications for the city council vacancy pursuant to Lewiston City Code Section 2-25, Sub B. Excuse me, Council. Clerk Brocky?
Counselor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Counselor Lidke.
Aye.
Counselor Klein.
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder.
Aye.
Counselor Forsman. Aye. Council President Kleber.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Motion passes. Next up, item E, Resolution 2024-43, concerning approving the July 2024 Thane Road Corridor and Access Study drafted by Kittles and Associates Incorporated. This is an action item, and we have our Public Works Director here, Dustin Johnson, with us here. Welcome, Director.
Good evening, Mayor, City Camp. I stood on the wrong agenda here. City Council, Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director, coming to you before you tonight to speak on actually 4 significant topics. I apologize, it's already been a long night for everybody, but these are all very important items, and we will start with the Thane Corridor study. I will give you a little bit of history, and I will come out of the gate right now and apologize. As you're experiencing tonight and other nights, you have a lot of business to do every day and every meeting. And so Previously, when I presented this Thane corridor study, I don't think I gave it enough commitment to give you the information, the background. We have 2 members on the MPO board on the council, but unfortunately, I think I may have skipped over some of the details that were pertinent to the process of what we do here and what the corridor study was actually intended to do. And so the mayor approached me and said, let's put it back on the agenda. And so here we are tonight. And so basically what we need from the council is some feedback and some direction. If this is something that the council's not supportive, that's great. That's why you're elected. But also I need a little bit more direction. Is there particular elements of the study that you don't support? Is there elements that you do support? And kind of breakdown of how we can move forward with what we've got invested in the plan and what we've invested in outreach with some of the impacted property owners and some of the accident data, which I'll go into a little bit of detail. I want to give a little bit of background. I'll revisit probably this exact slide in February when we talk about the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. Generally, this is a cyclical process, and any road that we own and operate, it inevitably will need to be reconstructed or reinvested in as growth and development happens, or roads just get old and out of date. So what we're in, what specifically this Thane corridor study is the study. What we do is we outreach, we get feedback from the users, we look at land use planning, we look at accident data, and we try and come up with a cohesive plan. And the city of Lewiston, at least in the last 5 years, probably even longer than that, has put a lot of investment in planning our arterials, where they're going, how we can improve them. And so I talk about the arterial loop, the Bryden, Snake River, Main Street, 21st, Thane, and then back to Bryden. Those are all principal arterials that we all, probably every single one of us have driven on at least one of them today. And they're all in a condition that they need investment. And so we've been focusing on those corridors a little bit more than probably some of our other corridors, just because of the condition that they're in. We take those studies, we take that public outreach, and we move forward into the budget process. And so to use the Thane corridor study, we invested in a study. It had some recommendations, it had some concepts, but not necessarily everything in that study is actually necessarily something that is constructible or even something that we would want to consider. That's what we do in the capital improvement process. The CIP, so the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan, is kind of where the city, the council, the public has an ability to rank these projects and say, this is a project. Right now it's Main Street. It's been Bryden, 21st Street, all of these Warner roads that are in need of investment. And so that's where we can rank those projects. And that's where we take that process and put it in the budget. We can take all that information and roll it forward in grants, allocations from the federal government, or we just budget and we build these. A lot of these roads and projects are within our spending capacity, and we build those projects. And so then that rolls us into that third bullet of build. So we design them, we take all that information and design and build those projects. And so talking about Thane corridor study, we're on the first leg of a marathon. So we're out of the gate. We've identified a corridor that has interest, some potential improvements. Then we're going to look at ranking these projects, how we want to pay for them, maybe applying for grants, budgeting, and then moving forward into construction. So just a quick history on that. As I said, the city identified some principal arterials that we wanted to construct or wanted to invest in. That was 2.5 years ago, roughly, probably fall, winter of 2022. The city, in communication with the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the federal agency, which is, it's a bi-state organization that we work with. So City of Visotin, County, Clarkston, Lewiston, Nez Perce County are all members of that MPO. There is a direct allocation from the federal government, mostly for planning, but they also manage or allocate the STP funds, Surface Transportation Funds, that are actually used for construction. Conversation with the MPO, they had some funds available moving forward into what would be the 23 budget. We said Thane corridor would be a great project to look into, and I'll get into the details as to why. Awarded the contract in the spring of 23. You can see the project timeline. I think identified this last year. And then inevitably, it was adopted by the MPO policy board, but then it was brought forth to the council last month and they declined to accept the resolution. Project goals, just real high level, basically wanting to make sure that identifying the users, trying to accommodate current and future traffic loads, not impact current and future development, and make it a safer corridor. Real general, there was 3 separate phases of public engagement, including work at the fair. This was the 23 fair, so not this fair, but last fair. There was pop-up booths at the Rose Hours. There was at least 120 different site visits to property businesses and property owners. Altogether, there was probably 1,000 different comments and interactions from the public for this over the course of 9 months. So the reason that this was the most expensive project that was ever funded through the MPO, and the biggest reason was because there was so much engagement with the public. Basically, what came out of this was, I think anybody who drives that recognizes it's a 4-lane section. I think I said last time, 4-lane section is trying to do 2 things, at least on Thane corridor. There's a lot of people who never stop in Thane. They go through, they live out on the East Orchards. They're just trying to get from point A to point B and never stop. And the fewer brake lights they see, the better. Then there's people that own businesses, shop in those businesses, and they want to get in and out of there. And so a 4-lane section is probably the worst section that you could have because there's no dedicated turn lanes, there's no deceleration lanes. And so you get half the volume, and I'm generalities, but half the volume trying to push through and half the volume trying to find a turn or trying to get in the right lane to turn or turn across traffic. So it is a challenging area. I wanted to go 3 lanes to have that center turn lane, but it doesn't function because of all of those accesses, all of the turning movements degrade the level of service of that road. There's 19,000 cars a day. And one thing that has popped up consistently, and I don't think I spoke enough to it last time, is the crashes. This is consistently a high volume crash corridor. And it doesn't matter. The data used for this study was 2018 to 2022. I was reached out by our police department and they gave me all the data all the way up to current. It is consistently people trying to pass people turning into businesses and rear-ending people trying to take a left turn. And this is, it doesn't quite show up very well. This is the crash data. So each circle is a crash. Yellow is just a fender bender, orange is injury, and red is serious accident, serious injury. So if we go all the way up to Stewart, you can start seeing the clusters of where these accidents are. And in talking with police last week, they're predictable. These accidents are all occurring relatively to the same turning movement, relatively at the same time, same volume of traffic moving at the same time. And you'll start seeing the clusters of them. Once you get kind of south of Burrell, they're less clustered, but everything north of Burrell is very clustered. I do want to point out, part of this was access, development, future growth, and accidents. But if you look at 10th and Warner, there's not a lot of accidents. I'm turning my eyeballs here. Not a lot of accidents there. And so just put a pin in that as we talk about 10th and Warner. So as I said, there was about a half dozen of these sheets provided, or a dozen sheets provided in the study, hundreds of pages, but these are the most interesting ones from one of the appendices. And what they put together was simple project templates or areas of improvement. And some of these can be done standalone. Some of these can be done in concert with other ones. And some of them, like this one, is a very affordable one. So this is Stewart and Thane. And basically what they're finding is it's the second most frequent, highest intersection with the most crashes. And there's no dedicated turn lane right there. And so, their recommendation is for $20,000, upgrade the signal cabinets and have a dedicated turn lane so you don't have those people cutting across as people are coming up the grade. That's a simple one. It seems, worthwhile to invest in $20,000 to reduce the second most common injury or accident location there on that corridor. This is another one. This is Preston. Again, this is a little bit more expensive, well, quite a bit more expensive, $1.7 million. And this is just, again, finding a way to make this intersection functional. I'm just using these are just random ones I picked out of the dozen that kind of show what was considered. So I talked about 10th and Warner. And, you know, this is what I do for a living, so I live in this stuff, and I recognize, you know, what we talk about impacts everybody's lives. You know, we're witnessing it tonight. So this one, 10th and Warner, I looked at it and I said, well, that will definitely funnel traffic. I mean, that'll dramatically improve the functionality of that intersection. I've had 2 conversations just today, let alone with some counselors, but today Gateway Materials reached out to me, and then outside I ran into Clearwater Canyon Sellers owner and talked to her for a little bit about it, and she said, yeah, that wouldn't work for me. And it's pretty, and what's interesting is, well, duh. I mean, one, it's pushing you on Warner, but also if you think about the traffic volume that uses this, let's just say you work down at the mill, you live somewhere, you're gonna turn off this and you wanna go down Gun Club. And now your turning movement is restricted. And so this will improve the level of service at this intersection dramatically. Night and day, it'll move traffic very well. But it's going to push all of that traffic onto the neighboring streets that don't necessarily have right of way or adequate lighting or sight distance or anything. So you're putting this on residential streets. The reason I'm calling this one out specifically is because this is one that I would not support. I don't think the council would support. It may work, and I've talked to the other people and other engineers. It may work if there's other improvements on other intersections to accommodate that traffic that's now going to be pushed off of this street. But based off of this is just a concept that, from my perspective, it's an interesting concept. We've had 3 different consulting engineers plus city engineers look at this. This is a difficult intersection. And if anything comes out of this study, 1, the public says this thing needs to be improved, and 2, it's not an easy fix. This fix, which would completely funnel all the traffic through there, is $230,000, and it's going to create probably more headaches than what we want. So regardless, I think 10th and Warner and Thane intersection needs to be moved up on the capital improvement plan. Again, this is just kind of a high-level summary of the findings, recommendations, or scenarios considered for this study. It's a smattering across, and you can kind of probably overlay the circles of the accidents with their possibilities of improvement. And none of these at this point are, I would say none of this is locked into, gonna happen or anything. They're all for consideration for improvements to try and make that corridor travel better and safer for the public. So with that, I think, as I said in my opening, I need some feedback from the council. If they're in agreement with anything in the study or some of the study or all of the study, because what we take those studies and we upgrade or update our capital improvement plan, and then we use that for future grants and future budget lists. And so a no vote, I wasn't quite clear on where we should go. So I'm hoping for a little bit of feedback tonight. So with that, I stand for questions.
Director Johnson, I'm going to jump right in there. If council will forgive me or give me the discretion here. A couple of quick questions from page 18, page 19 of the study, because it goes along with some of this, and it's how can businesses participate, get involved, and then how is this study going to be used or needed for future funding? So let me just pull out a couple of comments. So on page 18, it says long-term considerations. The following recommendations are potential long-term projects that can be considered in the future as the area around Thane Road corridor develops. And I think that's one of the concerns I hear from businesses, but I'm also concerned that I've seen that when you learn that you have a transportation problem, it's probably too late. Because by then, the impact is there, the traffic is there, and it's always hard to catch up to it. Maybe you can't get the right-of-way, purchase the right-of-way, or maybe by the time you secure the funding, another 2, 3, 4, 5 years has gone by, and then there's more planning, new ideas come in, old ideas get thrown out, and I don't know that you ever catch up to it. So a question about that in terms of that these projects may not necessarily go, but we have to look at this as that corridor develops over the time period. And then the question on the funding part of it, because I know it talks in here about incorporating this into long-range planning documents, you know, so that we can include them in our capital improvement planning and funding requests. And if we don't have something in place, it's really hard to go and make grant applications if we have no projects or potential corridors and things like that we need to do. So kind of a ramble there, but you know, how can the businesses get more involved in this, and then also the funding portion of it, how critical that is to this?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head where in transportation planning, if you've identified the problem, it's probably too late in generality. And Lewiston is going east-west is a struggle for the city of Lewiston. And, you know, most of the development is going east of here. And so I think I talked in the last time that, you know, my concern here is we've got to find a way to get the traffic off of Thane. But Thane is at 19,000 cars a day. And with so many accesses and so many left turns allowed on that corridor, those accidents are completely predictable. In talking with police, they say you can literally set a car up there because you know at 5 o'clock during rush hour, there's going to be an accident because somebody's going to be turned left and they get rear-ended. And so, yes, that is helping us plan bigger picture and work our way in there. So a few raised medians or cleaning up some of those accesses may clean up that corridor and reduce some of those accidents while we can start planning and doing grant applications. And that study identified Thane is really prime for a lot of grants because of the type of use, the volume, the users of it. It is something that I think we could usually flip into a raised grant or some of these other larger federal grants that I think are very viable for this corridor. And then the second question was about
how the businesses can be more involved in it.
And I think that is the one thing I thrive off of is the interaction with the public. And so I try to make sure every step of the way that the public is engaged or invited to participate. So the study, I said, how many, reaching out to 1,000 different people or having 1,000 different conversations. And that's just the start. So the capital improvement plan, we're in it now. So we'll take public comment right now for anything within anywhere in the city, for any city street. And we compile all that information. And in February, we update that capital improvement plan, and it's cyclical. And we have to publish those at some point, but as soon as we publish it, we're back open for public comment. And what's incredible is, it's a lot of times the first responders, it's the transit drivers, it's the garbage men, but it's the businesses that see things that I don't see. I see most of my world from a map and a budget. And so I need more of that feedback. Today's conversations with the owners of the winery and Gateway Materials, that wasn't, I'm not lying. When I had not considered the impact to the neighboring streets, I knew it would have worked itself out in the wash, but today I can tell you that's not a supportable project, but to have that interaction helps me make the city better in this process.
Councilor Forsman?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm okay with the signals. I think you have the delayed timing, if I understand that correctly. The update signal timing to include a leading pedestrian internal LPI. And then I'm okay with all that. It's just the center divider doesn't seem like it's going to work out very well and cause more issues. I don't know what other solutions there is. I'd like to see maybe different solutions that we could do versus just having, because all I've seen is having the center, and maybe I'm not understanding, but.
The raised median, the plan had a lot of them called out in various areas. I think specifically, and I'm not going to say, like the Warner one, I wasn't, after a deep dive and some conversations, pulled back on that one. Not to say that would never work, but for today, it wouldn't work. There's a lot of raised medians on Thane because those left turns off of Thane are causing accidents. You have to eliminate that turning movement. And I'm not saying there's probably 3 turning movements where we could put a raised median and reduce a large volume of accidents. And that's that's a conversation that is, we got to look at what businesses they're accessing. Is there a better way to get them there? How does this do it? But those left turns are causing accidents. So we have to figure out a way to make those left turns either go somewhere else or make them into a right turn.
Mayor,
Counselor Forsman?
I'm okay with having the mediums, just as long as we're not, as you stated, we're not causing people not to be able to access the businesses. It's going to affect them and how they get customers. As long as we're kind of really putting that at the forefront of thought,
Yeah.
I'm okay with trying to figure this out.
I think the way this study, which is, this is the first time, at least in my memory, that anybody's looked at doing any significant improvements on Thane. And the feedback that we've gotten, everything from the general public at the fair to now tonight, I would, I would never, just say, I'll put the road crew out there tomorrow and start putting medians up. That's not what we would do. I'm interested in bundling some of these together because there was a lot of conversation in that. Again, like 10th and Warner, that wouldn't work by itself. And some of these, like the one at Stewart, we can do that. That's an easy one. That doesn't impact anybody. That's an investment in city equipment. But if we're going to take this on, I think we would want to kind of look at, like I said, some of these intersections where we have those accidents and we can really hone in on what I could pull up those, look at the accident data and say, oh, they're all turning into this street. Let's fix that. And bring it back as part of a larger capital improvement plan that we could roll out and say, hey, we talked about this 18 months ago or 6 months ago, and this was identified in the study. They recommended this, but I think if we do this, it'll meet the merit, make it a more digestible project so we can put actual fingers on it. Because right now, this is all just concept. It's not really it's in reality other than like, we got to restrict some of those left turns.
Counselor Schroeder?
Where am I? I move to approve resolution 2024-43.
Second.
Could you restate your motion, Counselor?
I move to approve resolution 2024-43.
Thank you. Second by Kleberg. It's been moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Council President Kleberg to approve Resolution 2024-43. Counselor Schroeder, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, being on the MPO and actually on the Public Works Advisory Commission, we have seen this a lot more than the rest of the council has seen it. And this is recommendations done by people that know how to do this, and they look at all different avenues of how to put these things together and how do they work. And they find some things that they thought would work don't work, and then other things do work. But it's the accidents that are happening that we really have to go after and get the best solution for them. And maybe we don't like that best solution right now, but we all know we can learn to live with things, especially when we realize they are saving accidents or preventing accidents. So it's been quite a journey going through these. It's been a long journey, but it's very interesting how they look at these and the kind of things that you would think would work don't work, and the things that they find do work is surprising. So I am very much in support of this.
Thank you, Counselor. Clerk Brockie?
Council President Kleberg had his hand up.
Oh, pardon me, Council President Kleberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree 100% with Councilor Schroeder. This, and Director Johnson, I mean, this is the biggest project that the MPO's taken on. They spent a lot of time on this, a lot of public interaction, and I agree with Justin 100%. Not every one of these projects is going to get done, but until we start addressing some of the things up there, to lighten the load on Thane, perhaps changing some driving habits. Because I think that's part of the goal, is to reduce the amount of traffic on Thane. It's just, it's a learning curve. People just get re-educated on where their new driving habits are going to be. It's all doable. I fully support it, and I asked the council's support the last time around when we voted on this, and I'm asking for it again.
Thank you, Council President Kleberg. Councilor Klein.
Yeah, so every time I go through this, it gets worse and worse, and I find more problems. And I will gladly sit down with you and have a discussion about everything that, all the issues and possible solutions, right? I'm not an engineer and I don't, I don't claim to be, but I know this isn't the solution for this community. Reducing access to businesses, like you put medians in the middle of the road, I'm just gonna go home. Right? It's going to stop a lot of people from visiting these businesses, and they're already struggling as it is. More people are ordering off of Amazon and ordering online just because they don't want to have to deal with the traffic. This study, when it was first presented, I talked to the presenter and asked her about the gun club issue. Like, there's a lot of people that they know where they're going. They're not stopping on Thane. They're not trying to cause a congestion. They'd rather just go gun club or another route to get away from it, right? And reduce the traffic on Thane. And her response was that's not what their goal is. Their goal is to just make traffic better on Thane. They're not trying to divert it anywhere else. But I feel like there's other options that we can do for those people that are just going through and not stopping and trying to help improve better access to businesses without restricting people and basically forcing them to drive the correct way. People just aren't paying attention anymore, and it's not our responsibility to babysit their driving habits.
Councilor, thank you for your comments, and I do want to thank Councilor Klein for providing some additional feedback to the council that she put together. So I think that's very valuable. And I did read them and I'll review them again, but thank you. Council, further comments? If not, Clerk Rocky.
Counselor Spickelmeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Lidkey,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Nay?
Counselor Schroeder,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman, nay. Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Next up, item. Next up, item F, Resolution 2024-51, concerning approving an amendment to the yard waste and biosolids contracts with Latos Sanitation, Inc., DBA Clearwater Composting, to extend the contract termination date from December 31, 2024 to December 31, 2029. This is an action item. Director Johnson.
Mayor.
Councilor.
Motion.
Motion's in order.
Motion to approve resolution 2024-51. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Forsman, second by Councilor Schroeder to approve resolution 2024-51. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Rocky.
Counselor Spickelmeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Lidkey,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder, aye. Counselor Forsman, aye. Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Next up, we have item G, CM/GC Downtown Transmission Main Replacement, WR 600 Phase 2 Construction Price Amendment, concerning approving an amendment to the construction manager general contractor Phase 1 pre-construction phase services agreement with the Keniston, Leon, and Keeble Group in the amount of $3,200,000. This is an action item, and again, we have our Public Works Director with us. Director, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. I'm going to do my best to streamline this. It's a little confusing, but this is a significant decision moving forward tonight. Going back into Main Street. So Main Street, we'll go back to 2022 roughly. The American Rescue Plan Act. City of Lewiston was given a direct allocation of $6 million-ish. And the council at that time, so that was the previous council, right after we did a significant water study downtown, they said, we need to invest that money in downtown. So all of the City of Lewiston's ARPA dollars that were allocated directly to the city have been put towards downtown water. And as of today, we have spent roughly half of that ARPA money. The federal rules for ARPA are they need to be obligated by the end of this calendar year, and this is your last meeting of that calendar year. So if you so choose to not accept this, I will ask for again, direction of where we go. But those funds need to be obligated by this end of this year and then spent by the end of 26. So we have plenty of runway in front of us to construct the remaining bit of water. There's just, once we started diving into this Main Street water line, recognizing and getting feedback from, again, talking with public, the downtown property owners, the business owners, saying, hey, why are you doing just water line? Have you considered storm? Have you considered wastewater? How about the reconstruction of Main Street? So that started building momentum. And so the mayor and the council put together a concept or a contract for a concept design for Main Street reconstruction, the whole enchilada. And moving forward, the city will be putting out a general obligation bond in the spring of 2025. And if you read that, our funds for the ARPA dollar for the water line need to be obligated by the end of this year. So we ran into this little window where we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. And so there was a chance where if we say we're just going to do it all with the Main Street reconstruction and the bond fails, we still don't complete the initial push to get water from Low Reservoir all the way down to the core of our downtown. And so we wanted to make sure we had some latitude in that. And so this is an old slide from many years ago, kind of outlining, this is actually from that study. And so here's Low Reservoir that feeds all of basically our downtown zone. And so starting in 2019, we started building this trunk line that we're going east to west. And as of today, we're at 9th Street. So we've completed all of this to here. And if you look at the buildings, you can see we start getting into some very dense development in there. And so the cost goes up quite a bit once we're in these tight areas. So again, this is a recycle slide, kind of giving you the idea of the concept of where we've come. 2019, the master plan, the study from the downtown specifically was in 2021. ARPA funds were awarded in 2022. What we're talking about tonight. So we did what is called a CMGC. Get my acronyms all upside down or backwards. Construction Management General Contractor. So basically, this is the same method in which the courthouse was built. So we hired this firm to help us. And so what we did was we broke this out. There's 2 steps. So we're awarding this tonight. It's one contract we're awarding. In the spring election, we have 2 scenarios, if the bond passes and if the bond fails. And so there's a base bid that you see that is a part of both packages, and that is this water main on D. It needs to be replaced. There's a lot more right-of-way and availability to work right there. It's actually in front of my office or near my office, so it'll be less impactful to the Main Street businesses. And so this is if the bond passes. So the green will be in both packages, but the green will be the base bid. And then if the bond passes, we will do the work that connects this to the Well 1A water network and then complete D. We'll essentially build until we run out of money, but this is kind of what we're scheduled to work forward. This is the stuff that will be less impactful to the downtown property owners, and knowing that the bond will have passed and the full Main Street reconstruction will take place, and we'll be able to do all of this Main Street water line in one pass. And so that will be done with the wastewater, the stormwater, the street reconstruction, the sidewalk vaults, trees, the whole deal. And so, and we won't waste the ARPA dollars, because that's the point of what we're trying to do, is invest as much as we can in the ARPA or in our water system, and not surrender any ARPA dollars. Next one is if the bond fails. And so, like I said, the nightmare scenario would be we put all our eggs into the bond basket and it fails and we don't get any water improvements downtown. We put all the side streets, which they don't do anything for us unless they're connected to the improvements. So if the bond fails, in the spring, we pick up where we left off on 9th Street. We will obviously do our best to work with the downtown property owners, but we want to get this water line replaced. And so that's the base bid, the green one there on D Street. But we will be doing this segment down the middle. There's no wastewater, there's no stormwater, there's no street reconstruction. We minimize our impact as tight trenches. We do have a local contractor that is the low bid on this, and so we've had success working with them in the past to minimize our impact. But it will be a tough project just because it's tight in downtown. And so what we're asking for tonight is to award the contract as outlined in the packet. And I've said there's 2 routes: if the bond fails, if the bond passes. And those, by May, once the bond has passed, we will know which direction this contract will go. And that contractor will start on their own while we design the rest, or if the bond passes, we'll start doing the design for the Main Street. So I think that is all I have, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Director. Counselor?
Mayor,
Counselor Lidke?
for motion,
Motion's in order.
I would move to approve Phase 1 pre-construction phase services agreement with the Keniston, Leon and Keeble Group in the amount of $3.2 million and authorizing the mayor to sign the amendment.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Lidke, seconded by Counselor Schroeder, to approve the Phase 1 pre-construction phase services agreement with the Keniston, Leon and Keeble Group in the amount of $3.2 million and authorizing the mayor to sign the amendment. There's no further discussion. Clerk Brockie?
Counselor Spiegelmeier,
Aye.
Counselor Lidke,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman,
Aye.
Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Motion passes. Item H, ordinances. Number 1, first reading. A, ordinance 4934, considering enacting Article 5, Chapter 36 of the Lewiston City Code, which establishes regulations governing discharge to the city stormwater drainage system in compliance with requirements of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, Phase 2, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit. This is an action item, and again, we have our Director, Dustin Johnson, with us.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So again, this is a very significant resolution ordinance in front of you tonight. So we go back to the stormwater federal permit. It's got many different names: Phase 2, MS4, NPDES, but that's the federal permit that the city of Lewiston is required to carry. And as part of that permit, we are required to implement updates to our code. And so this is, I think, I don't know if it's the first one, but it's a significant one in which it identifies amendments to the code that calls out illicit discharge. So what is an illicit discharge? It's basically discharge into the storm system that is anything but stormwater. So within this, it outlines motor oil, pesticides, pool water, anything, debris, garbage. And so basically outlines that the city has the authority to regulate that, because that's what our permit tells us we have to do. And then just kind of outlines how it is, codifies this within our own code. This is somewhat boilerplate, but it has been reviewed by our city attorney and our stormwater coordinator and myself. So I stand for questions.
Director, can you just comment on the education portion, please? And then I'll get to Councilor Klein.
Oh, yes. So one major component of this is construction, not just construction, but there's a heavy component for public education. A lot of it, I think it's pretty easy for us to know that in the modern days, you don't dump your waste oil down the storm drain. But there's a large component that this will require us to reach out to contractors. And so best management practices as far as keeping construction sites cleaned, and everything's from silt fence, track out, all those types of things, because inevitably you'll see a lot of that currently where construction, concrete washout, all that stuff ends up in our storm drains, and sometimes it damages it to the point where we have to replace the pipes or the inlets, and then of course we have to flush them out if there's a lot of mud in there. And so that's what this will help us kind of help educate, and gives us the authority to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Klein?
I was just wondering, I heard you talk about the pool discharge. There's a lot of people that have swimming pools in this area. What's the plan for educating those people? Because I see them drain their pools down the street, and I usually call Lloyd and tell him that there's probably a water leak somewhere because there's a bunch of water going down the street.
Pools, I mean, and living in the climate that we live, there's a lot of people who do have pools, and it is really hard on our water treatment plant if they don't dechlorinate it. So as long as they can dechlorinate it, and typically we try not to get them to do it into the storm system, mostly because it takes up capacity, and we've actually had it, where you get the spring or the summer storms and they're already full of pool water. But the biggest thing is dechlorination. So it's not, because it shocks our wastewater plant. We don't like that, but also we don't like the chlorine getting into the rivers either.
Mayor,
Councillor Forsman?
use my ignorance, but how do you dechlorinize
Tablets. It's just,
tablets?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not very familiar with pools, so.
You can do it the old-fashioned way and just let it off gas, or you can put tablet. There's stuff you buy at the pool place, and they'll.
Or they drain it, they just
Yeah.
put those in. Okay. Good to know.
Mayor?
Councillor Schroeder?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4934.
Second.
Been moved by Councillor Schroeder, seconded by Councillor Forsman to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4934. Is there discussion or amendments? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Brockie?
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4934, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston enacting Article 5 to Chapter 36 of the Lewiston City Code, which article establishes regulations governing discharge to the city's stormwater drainage system and prohibiting illicit connections and discharges to the stormwater drainage system, authorizing access to regulated facilities, requiring notification of spills, providing that violations of the illicit discharge and stormwater drainage system ordinance are misdemeanors punishable by a fine of not more than $1,000 or by imprisonment not to exceed 180 days or both, and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, we'll skip over Roman numeral 6, move on to Roman numeral 7. Unfinished and new business. Item A, City Councilor comments. Comments shall not be related to an item currently before the City Council or an item that may come before the City Council in the foreseeable future and shall be limited to comments, not discussion. Councillor Schroeder?
I was fortunate enough to be able to attend Chaz Clinic's annual memorial for the unhoused people who passed away during this last year in our valley. It's always a very moving presentation and time that we gather there. So I was very glad to be there. And of course, the weather held up, so that helped too. But I was very proud to be there.
Thank you, Councillor. Council President Kleber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a big turnout tonight, and I was glad to see that we had a big turnout because people were interested in a big subject. And I really want to thank everybody that came and got up in front of the microphone, took time out of their night to tell us what they thought. I'd like to see more, because a lot of times this is what we get for turnout at meetings. Right now is pretty bleak. Second thing would be, I'd really like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councillor Klein?
I just wanted to, I had comments about the library lighting upgrades. When we initially had accepted the bid before I was here, there was mention of savings on the, energy savings on the lighting, and so it'd be really interesting to know how that turned out, how much money we're saving on the lighting, with energy savings. And I wanted to thank them for providing the bid numbers. I thought that was really beneficial to see like what companies are bringing bids to the city and how much the bid comparisons were.
Thank you, Counselor. We can follow up with the library director. She went home early tonight, and I have the duty to lock the building up, but I will let her know. Thank you.
Yes, I've got your note right here.
Thank you. Don't let me forget.
I won't.
Thank you.
Do you want to see if they didn't have anything before I go?
Counselor Ledke or Counselor Speckelmeyer?
No, I didn't have anything. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Ledke?
I would just quickly like to thank the city employees and the mayor for the last 3 years of working, as well as the council members. The decisions we make up here affect a lot of people, and in the last 3 years, there's decisions that I think were ones that I was proud to stand on. Possibly being the only nay vote or aye vote. I encourage everyone that was there tonight to continue to be active in their community. I would heed the mayor's commitment and ensure that the city knows exactly what's going on in your neighborhood, and get on a committee, a commission, a board of some kind, and get involved, because for us to stand up here and make these decisions, at least for me, and I can only speak to myself, the decisions up here are not because I don't want to fix every problem. The decisions that I make and the votes that I make are decisions that I think the city of Lewiston is feasible in doing so and continuing to do so into next generations. And so it's not easy. I don't like some of the things that come out of my mouth because I know that I will be judged as being heartless, when in reality I'm taking a different outlook. So I believe that the city is on its way to being a very great city, and I can't wait to continue working when I am sworn into the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mayor.
Counselor Forsman?
I just want to extend my heartfelt thanks to Councilor Lickey for putting her time and energy into the council. This job can be rewarding, and it also can be exhausting because you don't want to make people, you don't want to hurt people, you don't want to have someone go home unhappy, but it's just the name of the game. You know, sometimes you're going to make decisions that make people happy, and sometimes you're going to make decisions that don't. The best we can do at council when we make these decisions is do as much research as we can and get as much information as possible so that when we're making these decisions, we're informed. And so I feel that Hannah is one of the counselors that has definitely lived up to that and has made sure that she does her due diligence. And I respect everyone of the council, even if sometimes we walk out of here with disagreement. We're all here to make Lewiston better. And so I just want to commend Councilor Lickey, and I'm excited to have her on the county because I think it's going to be a fresh change and a good asset to hopefully continue to support between the city and the county. I also want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their time with family, and maybe it'll snow, or if you don't want it to snow, I don't know. Some people like it to snow on the Christmas morning. And I came into this meeting, obviously, with the thought of maybe I'm just not feeling good today and I'll just stay home. Because I knew it was going to be a hard meeting. I knew that this was going to be high attentions, high emotions. And this is one of the meetings where I have to make a decision that I know is going to impact people for good or bad. And it's really hard. And I'll just say the best that I try to do is make sure that I do my research and that I'm thinking of the future of Lewiston. And I have no hate towards anybody that comes up here and talks and supports for our community. And so I appreciate those citizens that came and voiced their opinions. Even if they're not ones that I agree with, it's important that they're coming up, and sometimes I see different perspectives. So I just want to thank our citizens for coming up. I kind of wish they were here when we said these things, but hopefully they come back and listen. But yeah, have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, Counselor. Further council comments? I will move to B, City Boards and Commissions liaison updates. Counselors, anything?
Real
Counselor
quick.
Klein?
Real quick, last meeting, Counselor Kleberg mentioned that he was having a hard time attending the library meetings, and so I attended the last library meeting and found it really, really interesting. They have all kinds of fun kits that you can actually check out from the library to go camping or looking for planning for gold or all kinds of fun stuff that they have other than just books. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Counselor. I know that I did follow up with the library director. She's very pleased that you attended. So thank you for doing that. And I'm going to get the snowshoes. Then I'll do gold panning in the summertime. So. Next, we have 7C Advisory Board Commission appointments. Item 1, Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board, considering appointing Chris Jacks to a 4-year term to our EMS Advisory Board. Chris, of course, works for our fire department. He's a paramedic and one of our battalion chiefs. I would like to nominate him for 4-year term on the EMS Advisory Board. So I move to approve the appointment of Chris Jacks to a 4-year term on the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board.
Oh, sorry.
You beat me second.
Yeah.
Moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to approve the appointment of Chris Jacks to a 4-year term on the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We thank Chris for his service on that board too. Mayor comments, item D. Well, I get the honor, Councilor Lidke, we've got this little plaque for you, but you're not here. And I'm going to look on the screen to see there. Can you see it? If I get real close to that camera down there, I could probably do it, but I'm going to read it to you and then I'll find a way to get this to you. But from the city of Lewiston, and grateful appreciation presented to Hannah Lidke, January 22nd to January of 2022 through December 2024 for your dedicated service and leadership as a member of the Lewiston City Council. Your commitment to the community and efforts to improve the city of Lewiston are deeply valued. Thank you for your vision, dedication, and years of service. Daniel G. Johnston, Mayor, Jim Kleberg, Council President, and then your city council members, Cassie Forstman, Jessica Klein, Kathy Schroeder, and John Spickelmeyer. So thank you, Councilor, for your service, and we wish you well in your new ventures at the county. And we are going to be calling upon you because we're going to need some help. So thank you. Congratulations. And you can have the floor if you'd like to make one last comment.
Just real quick, we are nearing the end of Advent season, and I encourage everyone to take a moment to enjoy the still of the next couple of days. Enjoy your families, enjoy your neighbors, and realize that we're all here for a purpose, and I happen to believe that one of those top purposes is of service. And this was a challenge, to say the least. Definitely worth it. And while I leave concerns that there are things that weren't accomplished, I do feel like, again, that the city is headed in the right direction. Leadership is not something for the lighthearted. And Mayor, I just have to say that while you don't toot your own horn, the changes that I've seen have been immense and impactful and will result in the city taking their place where they need to take their place and see good things happen. And so to you, I say thank you for your service. And to the council, keep doing the work, and hopefully the city and the county will meet more regularly and accomplish big things.
Thank you, Counselor. Last item I have under Mayor comments, I would like to recognize Mike Lorenzo, who's in the audience tonight. He's one of our applicants to replace Hannah Litke, so you'll have an opportunity to review his application, maybe give him a call if you have questions. But Mike, thanks for sticking it out with us tonight. Roman numeral 70, agenda topics. Counselors, any agenda topics? None. We're going to go to Roman numeral 8, adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Council President Kleberg to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, Council.